My entitled coworker is constantly monitoring what I'm doing while also being very passive-aggressive, micromanaging me at any chance she gets. But after this coworker invaded my privacy by breaking into my computer to read my direct messages to one of my coworkers, I decided enough was enough, as I decided to report her, with this coworker saying that she would retaliate against me if I said anything to anybody, putting me in a situation where honestly I seriously just don't know what to do, and I don't know if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things off, I'm a 27-year-old female and I have a coworker who I will call Amy for the sake of the story. We're both the same age and we used to be really good friends when I first started at my job. I then went through something very traumatic and then everything changed. She started to treat me differently a lot, lots of tension and mistreatment. In the almost 2 years since that happened, Amy has been snarky with me and low-key creating a hostile work environment. She would have little outbursts at me when no one else was around when I would speak to her. Our work is in a lab and very much requires team collaboration and communication. Well, Amy watches what I do and tries to interfere with me doing anything. I've tried to remain neutral-toned and straightforward, but at times it gets hard, especially when someone's been grinding you down every shift for over a year. So I'm not gonna lie, I probably had an undesirable tone when speaking to her at times, but I would say it was never unprompted. Our team has gone through some changes. The old manager left, so the team lead, who I will call Sammy, is now the manager. And that's great, except for the fact that Sammy is Amy's cousin, and they are really close. Sammy assured me that he is objective and is here for everyone the same, and Amy has a different reporting manager. But Amy's new manager is not on site, so Sammy is still her manager, just not on paper. A meeting is set up in the beginning of December to talk about Amy and I's working relationship. We both discussed what we had been feeling. I took accountability for times my tone was not as kind, and I also brought up how I'm feeling monitored by her, and I would like her to trust me to do my job. I am a very high-performing member of the team, and I do my job well. But guess what? She did not take any accountability for anything. She also brought up that I need to trust her and her decisions. We then just agreed to move on a clean slate and just reset. Well, on December 17th, I come into work, and I noticed that my Teams has been left on a chat with a friend of mine who's also a coworker, who for the sake of the story, I will call Carly, who works in a different state. And that's really odd because I haven't talked to her in quite a few weeks. I then look at the camera and I follow the last time I logged in, and just as I suspected, Amy takes advantage of my account being open and spends 5 minutes reading my messages with Carly. She opens Teams and opened my messages with Carly, very clearly by the way in the video, showing her intent. So I gather my evidence and I am pissed off. I don't know exactly what she read, but I definitely would rant to Carly about Amy, some of my other coworkers, the work and personal stuff, and a bunch of other things. Now, I like to handle things face to face before escalating to management, so I ask Amy to speak in private. We then talk and she just outright admits to reading my messages and then blames it on her curiosity. She said she was suspicious I was talking about her since at least September. And you know what? She tried her best to turn the conversation around and talk about what I talk about with Carly and who I'm allowed to talk to regarding her. I kept trying to redirect the conversation back to her snooping around on my stuff, but she just kept giving the same excuses. After going around in circles, I let her know that due to this conversation, I will have to bring this up to at least Sammy. But she said if I tell him, then she will tell people what I said in my messages to Carly. She went on pushing for me to apologize, but I ended the conversation and I just left the room. I went back and forth on going to human resources versus just talking to my manager, but in the end, I decided to go to human resources because for one, Sammy is her cousin. Number two, she invaded my privacy. 3, she basically said she was going to retaliate if I said anything. And number 4, the previous meeting in December. Human resources wanted to wait for me to meet with Sammy this week, but I pushed for meetings with a neutral party before or during that meeting just to ensure objectively that this gets handled properly. I will absolutely own everything I said to Carly. And by the way, I did not say anything that could even be considered bullying. In fact, the only message that I know for sure she read was me talking about how she is in my business all the time and becoming increasingly passive-aggressive. I have no issue if she tells anyone what I said, but more so, it's a problem with her threatening me with it. I spoke with human resources and Amy's manager, and they told me they're taking this very seriously and an investigation has been started. Amy's also been taken off the schedule the last week of December, and I've not seen her or Sammy ever since then. In fact, I'm going to find out what happens to Amy in the next few days. I have felt a roller coaster of emotions since discovering that she's done this. So it honestly makes me beg the question, am I overreacting by reporting her to human resources and for pushing for such a serious action to be taken? Because right now I honestly don't know if I made a mistake. Okay, I can say first and foremost, no, you did not make a mistake here. You are not in the wrong for reporting a coworker acting like this. Like, dude, she's invading your privacy, she's micromanaging you and treating you like crap. She also has no accountability for her terrible actions. Like, dude, this is some awful behavior. I would be so annoyed by this. Even worse, she said that if you say anything to anybody, she's gonna retaliate against you and try to like ruin your job. And guess what? That is absolutely not allowed. Retaliation is a fireable offense. Like, what is Amy thinking? Dude, that is such a stupid plan. That's not going to work out in her favor. If anything, it probably put like the nail in the coffin for Amy working there. Like, I can absolutely see her getting fired. So no, you did not do anything wrong. Like, holy crap, you do not want someone like that working at your office because they are a nightmare to deal with. So in my opinion, I think you did the right thing and Amy absolutely has to go. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for excluding my brother from a fun event? All because his wife really talks way too much. Because after multiple times where she literally dominates the conversation regardless of what we're doing, I've kind of hit a breaking point where I'm deciding not to invite my brother simply because I don't want his wife there. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things off, I'm having a game night and I would love for my brother to attend, but I do not enjoy the company of his wife. Not because she's like a bad person or anything like that, but because she has no ability to control herself in a social setting. She not only dominates any conversation and is very loud, as it looks like she only has like one volume, but she will also rarely ask anyone questions about themselves without immediately jumping on what they're saying to make it about her. So unfortunately, due to her behavior, I have to exclude my brother from this event, and likely future events, because there's no way he would show up without her. My brother has been married for a year. This is not new behavior from her, and I have discussed it with him. He says he knows that it's annoying and disruptive, and that he has talked to her about it, but nothing seems to change. This happens at dinners and family gatherings, etc. And it's like I have to specifically seek him out alone if I even want to talk to him at all. If they're together, she cannot stop talking for the both of them, and he literally just can't get a word in. I understand it's probably an anxiety thing, and she claims to be going to a therapist for the past couple of years, but I just don't know if there's anything more I can do without being rude. Now, here's where I may be the jerk. I'm inviting some cousins and some of my close friends to game night that just so happen to live much further than my brother and his wife. I haven't told them, but I am concerned about them finding out and being hurt that I'd like the chance for everyone to participate in a conversation. Last time she was at game night, she delayed people's turns because she wouldn't stop talking and was practically yelling over people trying to participate in the game about unrelated things. So am I the jerk for excluding them on her behavior? Because right now I'm not sure how this is going to go down. Okay, in my opinion, this is one of those situations where your brother needs to step up and say something to his wife, because clearly this is a big enough problem where it's like, okay, we cannot move forward without this being addressed. And no, for the record, the way she's acting is completely weird. Plus, it's so obnoxious. Like, dude, relax. Take a seat and let other people talk. Don't scream over others just to like dominate the conversation. That is super annoying, and I absolutely don't blame the original poster for like not inviting the brother in this scenario. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. I think I would absolutely do the same thing if I was in your shoes, because your brother's wife sounds incredibly annoying. Am I the jerk for refusing to chip in for a coworker's birthday gift when I literally barely know them? Because right now, some people at my office are kind of treating me a little bit differently, and now I'm not sure what to do next. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I work at a mid-size office with about 30 people in total. Last week, someone who I will call Susan went around the office saying that we're all chipping in for a birthday gift for a coworker who I will call Jenna. Now, she works in a different department than me, and while I recognize her face, we've maybe exchanged a few hellos in the hallway, and that's about it. We don't work together, and we have never talked outside of that. Now, Susan, the organizer, suggested that everybody pitch in about $20 for a gift card and a cake. And at first, I didn't really respond. Later that day, Susan stopped by my desk and asked if I was in. I then said I was going to pass since I don't really know Jenna, and I didn't usually participate in office gift collections unless it's someone I work closely with. She looked surprised and said to me, "It's just $20. But I told her that I get that, but it feels weird to me to pay for gifts for people I don't have a relationship with. She then just kind of brushed it off and said okay, but after that, things felt really awkward. Ever since then, a couple of coworkers have been noticeably colder towards me, and one even joked that I'm that guy, meaning the guy who didn't put $20 in. And I'm now starting to wonder if I broke some kind of like unspoken office rule and came off as cheap or even like antisocial. I don't mind celebrating people I actually work with, but I also don't think gift giving should be mandatory, especially for someone I barely know. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I don't really know what to to do right now. Okay, holy crap, if you do the math, that lady would have gotten like $600 from everybody just for a gift card and cake for this Jenna lady. Like Susan was probably just pocketing half the money and being like, okay, here's like a $30 gift card. Meanwhile, I've basically made like half a grand. It's like, dude, yeah, it's only $20, but guess what? Why do I have to give you $20? Why don't I get a small gift for Jenna myself and leave it on her desk? In fact, why should I give you any money? From the sounds of it, it kind of seems like Susan was just straight up scamming everybody in the office, because who in their right mind is going to get like a $600 gift for somebody in the office that you work with? Like, I've had coworkers where it's like, yeah, we're like really close, but I'm not about to spend like $600 on you. Like, are you insane? Especially for someone you literally don't even know. Like, bro, what is going on right now? How can anyone be upset about this? So no, you're not the jerk. This is honestly kind of a weird ask in my opinion, because yeah, it's only $20, but that is still in my opinion way too much money. Am I the jerk for refusing to co-sign for my brother after I learned that he's already burned family and hid his debts from pretty much everybody? Because after I said no, he pretty much started to tarnish my name to anybody who would listen, putting me in a situation where honestly, I'm not sure if I made a mistake, and I really just don't know what to do now. Here's how it all started. Okay, so I have an older brother who I will call Dylan, who is the type to be charming when he needs something and offended when you ask any kind of question. He's always got a temporary setback story. Maybe it's a slow month, or a client who didn't pay, or an unexpected expense, etc. My mom has a soft spot for him, and I've tried to be supportive without being a sucker. Last week, he called me sounding unusually serious, and it's here that he asked if I would co-sign for a loan because he just needs a bridge for the next few months. He framed it like he had no other options and said it would be quick, no big deal, literally just his signature, and then he'd refinance out of it once things stabilized. Well, I just told him I would think about it because I didn't want to say no without knowing details. The night I called my aunt, who is like the only person in the family who actually says things plainly, to ask if she knew what was going on, she suddenly went quiet. She then told me that Dylan already asked her husband for help last year, and it turned into a giant mess. Apparently, Dylan convinced them to cover a couple of payments just once, and then stopped communicating, and then acted insulted when they asked for receipts and a plan. They then ended up paying off a chunk to avoid collections hitting their credit. And you know what? Dylan never paid them back. My aunt said that my mom knows most of this, but downplays it as misunderstandings because she doesn't want Dylan to look bad. I felt my stomach drop because Dylan never mentioned any of it, and he's been talking to me like I'm the first person he's ever asked. I also found out through a cousin that Dylan has multiple maxed out cards and has been bouncing these payment plans, which he also never told me. So when Dylan called again, I told him I'm not co-signing anything, and I'm not putting my credit on the line. I then offered to sit down and help him make a budget or like look at options that didn't involve me signing, but regardless, I'm not signing anything. Well, when I said that, he got angry fast and said I'm judging him based on family gossip and that I'm abandoning him when he's trying to fix his life. He said if I cared about him, I would trust him, and that I'm acting like I think I'm better than him. Then my mom called me the next day and basically begged me to reconsider because this is family and he is so stressed out, and apparently I'm the only one who can help him out, and she made it sound like I'm causing the crisis by saying no. Now I'm getting messages that I'm cold and selfish, and my brother's telling people that I refuse to help him get stable. So honestly, am I at fault here, like in any way, shape, or form? Am I the jerk for refusing to co-sign for a loan that I know is just gonna burn some bridges? What should I do? Because right now I'm seriously at a loss. Okay, in my opinion, the fact that you know that your aunt basically went through the same thing and she dealt with your brother being a complete weirdo and being like, oh, I have no one else to go to, I need a loan. Like, that would be everything I would need to see to be like, yeah, I'm not helping you at all. You're clearly just gonna burn me, this is not gonna end well for me, and I'm absolutely not gonna put up with this. Because this guy's already burned one person in the family, who's to say he wouldn't do that again to you? So I think saying no is like the only smart decision here, especially when you look at the way your brother's acting. You told him, no, I can't help you, but let's figure out a different solution. And he literally started lying and be like, oh, he's ruining my life. He's refusing to help me get stable in my life. And it's like, dude, why is that my responsibility? I'm not responsible for your life falling apart. That's on you, dude. Like, what are you talking about? So no, if I was in your shoes, I would not look back and I would keep plowing forward, because this kind of shaming and like guilt tripping is completely annoying and incredibly obnoxious. Am I the jerk for refusing to change our entire trip last minute, all because my partner's best friend invited himself into our trip, as he wanted to change just about everything about our plans around so that it would accommodate some of the things he wanted to do instead of the things that we had already planned to do ourselves? Because right now I am incredibly frustrated, as I feel like this guy is ruining everything that we planned out, and I just don't know what else to do here, because I seriously feel like I'm losing my mind. Here's what happened. So my partner and I have had a short trip planned for months. Nothing fancy, just 4 days days booked in another city, a couple museums, a one-day hike, and one do nothing and eat snacks in bed kind of day. We booked the train, we got a small hotel, and I even pre-booked timed entry tickets for a museum because it sells out fast. I'm the annoying planner type, I will admit it, but this is the first time in a while that I've actually looked forward to something. Well, a week ago, my partner mentioned that his friend, who I will call Mark for the sake of the story, might be in the same city around the same time for a thing he has with work. Mark and my partner have known each other forever, so I said sure, we can grab a drink if he's free. That sounded normal. Then Mark found out our exact dates, and suddenly it became, dude, I should just come with you guys, it'll be fun. I laughed it off at first like, oh yeah, sure. But then he kept pushing, not just joining for dinner, he wanted to take the same train, split a larger Airbnb instead of our hotel, and change the schedule so we do stuff that he likes. He's big on nightlife and spontaneous plans, which is also known as deciding at 11 o'clock p.m. where we go next and then sleeping until noon. Well, I told my partner I'm not into changing everything. The hotel is booked, our tickets are booked, and honestly, I don't want to share an apartment with Mark, even if he is a nice guy. I like having a door I can close and not feeling like I need to socialize the entire time. My partner said that Mark is easy and it would be rude to say no when he's already excited, but I said it's rude to invite yourself into someone else's trip and then act like you're the one doing them a favor. Mark then sends me a text directly, not even my partner, and says, hey, I found a sick Airbnb. It's cheaper and we can all hang out. You're definitely gonna love it. I then said we're keeping our hotel and our plans, but we can meet up one night. He then replied by saying, why are you being so strict about it? It's a vacation, relax. And that honestly made my eye twitch. Like, yes, it is a vacation, which is why I don't want to spend it compromising with a third person who wasn't part of it in the first place. Now my partner is sulking around and says I'm making it weird and that he feels stuck in the middle of this. Mark told him I don't like him and that I'm controlling the trip, and I don't hate Mark, I just don't want my break turned into a group project. I'm not saying my partner can't see him, I'm just refusing to blow up our bookings and rework everything 1 week out. So am I the jerk for like holding my ground and keeping the trip as planned? Because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, I will never understand how anybody can like invite themselves on someone else's trip. That is obnoxious. It is so cringeworthy, and I can't imagine doing that because that would be such an obstruction of what they're trying to do. Like, dude, you have no business being a part of this. They obviously have their own plans. They're doing their own thing. So for Mark to step in and be like, I found a better Airbnb, go ahead and cancel that hotel. We're gonna have a lot of fun together. And it's like, dude, you were never invited. I don't know why you're trying to hijack my plans, but holy crap, I don't want you here. This also sucks because your partner's trying to be like, oh, come on, Mark and I are friends. And it's like, dude, yeah, you're friends, but guess what? You can hang out some other time. You can schedule an elaborate get-together some other time besides the one that I literally planned out for us. And I think if I was in the original poster's shoes, that's the part that would probably bother me the most, is that my partner is not appreciating the fact that I put a lot of work into planning this. Like, they got the hotel, they got literally everything together for like museum tickets and all this other stuff. They booked the train and all like the transportation and all the worry you would possibly have on a trip like this. The original poster literally took care of all of that, and now Mark's stepping in trying to essentially ruin the entire experience. And that would be so annoying to me. Like, you're looking forward to this one thing and then suddenly some idiot comes out of nowhere and ruins it. And also, I completely agree with the original poster here. I do not want to have to socialize and entertain someone on my vacation, meaning that I do not want to share an Airbnb with Mark, dude. Like, that would be so annoying. Not to mention stressful, because Mark's gonna be like all over the nightlife and the spontaneous plans, which by the way, I would not be up for. Like, dude, I do not want to go to a club and watch you get wasted for like 3 hours. I'm sorry, but that's not gonna happen. So no, with everything in mind, like, dude, you have every right to turn this guy down and be like, no, you're not gonna come along with us. And the fact that your partner's not being more straightforward in this situation is only making things worse, which is really unfair for you because you put so much hard work into this, and I think you deserve to have a good vacation without Mark trying to ruin it. An entitled Karen cuts in line when going to the Food and Wine Festival at Epcot, causing problems not only for me, but literally the people behind us, as this lady stepped in right behind us and then claimed that she's not moving when we confronted her, which truly blew me away because I could not believe the audacity of this woman or the entitlement she had to stand there and pretend like she was in line the entire time. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I go to Epcot once a year with my boyfriend and in-laws for Food and Wine Festival. I've never had a bad experience at the park, and people are usually cranky but reasonable. Well, I met a truly stunning individual this year. My boyfriend and I were in line for one of the food pop-ups, and a young woman walks up to us asking if this is the line. We replied in the affirmative and that the end is all the way back there. Well, we went back to our conversation, but she stood next to the line while we were waiting. When the line moved up, she tried to step in front of us, and we didn't confront her, but we were like, no, not happening, and I took a big step in front of her. We continued talking, and she slipped into line right behind us. We both gave her a look, and I made some comment comment about people having manners, but again, we didn't want to confront her, so we just ignored her. I don't want to get banned from the park because I started a fight over a cut line, so whatever. A minute later, the couple that had been waiting in line behind us said something along the lines of, "Hey, do you guys know this woman?" And we confirmed that we absolutely did not. They then politely asked the cutter to move to the back of the line, and she flat out refused. Like, she would not budge. She then tried to lie and say that she had been in the line the whole time, but we have eyes, so obviously that didn't work. We then all commented on how wild it was that she would blatantly cut the line and then refuse to move, but she had no shame and just stayed right where she was. And if I'm being honest, this story doesn't really have a good ending because I didn't feel like pitching a fit over some food, but I still get mad thinking about it even to this day. It is just one person, so it's not like she took that much time or it was that much of an inconvenience, but it was her attitude and mindset. And I honestly have no idea how some people are just so entitled. Oh man, you're better than me because I absolutely would have made a scene. Like, I don't know about you, but like, there's no way anybody's gonna cut in line like that, especially when the people in front of you and behind you have waited for so long just to get into Epcot. And I know the festival this person's talking about, and holy crap, that is very busy. I have friends and family that have gone to that, and they've always told me that, yeah, these lines are crazy. So this lady cutting in line is a huge deal in my opinion, because sure, it's only one person, but also it's obnoxious that she thought she could get away with that. So if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have flagged down like a cast member and been like, "This lady cut in line and I've got evidence." And then hopefully as a group, we can all cast this woman back to the end of the line because that is exactly where she should have been in the first place. An entitled psycho school teacher loudly brags that she intentionally mistreats her kids in her classroom, stating that she enjoys their suffering and that she wants them to be miserable in the same way that she was when she was younger. But after hearing this for far too long, I decided to get some revenge by taking this Karen down in a way that she truly will never forget. Here's what happened. So we've all had those teachers that take their problems out on us, and this story is how I indirectly shamed one of the worst I've publicly encountered. A few years back, I was traveling with my family and we were taking a bus to our next stop. My mom, an amazing teacher of over 20 years, was sitting next to me, calmly reading and not paying much attention. There was a mother and daughter pair seated directly behind us, probably in their mid-50s and late 20s. My phone battery was already low and I didn't want it to die, so I was staring out the window people watching. It's then that I couldn't help but overhear the loud conversation between the ladies behind me, and I soon realized that they were both teachers. While the daughter seemed like a decent person, the mother was ranting about how much she hated her students and how happy it made her to torture them. For context, I guess the kids were around 12 to 13 years old. For example, if you turn in anything, namely a test, homework, or classwork, even 1 second late, regardless of the reason, she would only give 70% as the maximum grade that you could get. Apparently she wanted it lower, but administration would get suspicious. And if you ask a question she doesn't like, you get shamed in front of the entire class. She also had a running list on the wall tracking how many homework assignments each student missed, with snarky comments coming along with them. And of course, she would hide it when administration came by. Also, one student missed a few weeks of classes for a death in the family, and she told the whole school it was because he's dramatic and lazy. She also admitted to slapping at least 7 students and was only caught once, while also instigating fights in student friend groups just for entertainment. Now, I heard all of this for over a 45-minute period, and the mother seemed so disgustingly proud. The daughter kept trying to tell her how wrong it was to treat students like that, but the mom just laughed and called her stupid and naive. This idiot talked about how school was a nightmare for her growing up, so she wants these kids to suffer just as much, if not more. She even said it was the best kind of therapy. Now, I was appalled to say the least. Who in the world treats kids like that and then insults their actual child when called out for it? I never heard names or identifiers to report it officially, so I started thinking, and for once in my life, I had an idea that would make my usual problem of complaining the perfect solution for this situation. And it's then that I decided to set it in motion. So I texted my mom something along the lines of, "The woman behind us is a teacher and she is a jerk. I'm gonna go on a rant and I need you to go along with it. Close your book when you're ready." As soon as she saw the text message, she looked at me and smiled. It was time. I then started going on a long, loud rant about a professor at my college that treated the students so poorly. I then listed examples similar to the one this jerk said, with minor tweaks and changes, all the while talking about how much of a negative impact it had on us personally and academically. I whined about how she takes her hate hate and insecurities out on us and how miserable everybody is because she's just an overgrown bully on a power trip. I mentioned that even the other professors avoid her because they're so disgusted by how she treats us. I then ended it by saying I love my amazing teacher mom, and I know she would never do any of those things because what kind of loser takes out their frustration on kids? And you know what? My mom played along perfectly, and we changed the subject right after that. And you know what? I didn't hear a peep from behind us the rest of the ride. It was amazing to loudly complain about her in this metaphorical way. All the things she was proud of, I exposed as awful things to do. And you know what? They really were. And by the way, this was all on a crowded bus with at least an hour left to our destination. My mom wasn't pressed when she got the details later, and I wanted to say something to the daughter afterwards, but I felt bad that she got caught in the crossfire. But when the bus finally arrived, they shuffled off with incredible speed, leading me to believe that they definitely learned their lesson. Oh, I love this so much because I cannot stand teachers who do this. And yes, the original poster's correct. I've run into nightmare teachers like this before, and it's one of those where you can't prove it, but you know for a fact they're taking out their problems on you. And they're only acting this way because they want to make your life miserable because they're miserable. So I guess misery really does love company. That is so annoying. So good for you for getting back at them and literally putting them in their place, because people who treat kids like that are literally the worst people on planet Earth. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mother is convinced that my dead grandfather still owes her $100. And even though I've tried to argue this point to this woman over and over again, she still refuses to listen to reason. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my mother is an all-around wonderful woman. But unfortunately, that doesn't keep her from being a hard-headed, absolute jerk who's creating stupid arguments and sticking to her way or the highway no matter how many times you explain that she might be wrong. Well, she passed that trait on to me, which means we butt heads every once in a while, and this is one of those situations. Back in 2004, my parents announced their second pregnancy. My paternal grandfather, we will call Bob, had 5 grandsons at this point, spread across 3 kids. Since this would be the last baby of the generation, he pulled my mom aside and told her that he would give her $100 if she could give him his first granddaughter. And obviously, if she was going to give birth anyways, it was a done deal. Well, fast forward and my mom gives birth to me and my twin sisters, 2 fraternal baby girls. The first time my grandfather visits her and his new granddaughters, he gives my mom a shiny $100 bill. But she then gets offended and tells him that this wasn't what they agreed upon. She gave him 2 granddaughters. So surely that means that he owes her $200 instead of the original $100, because in her mind, she had done double the work. And from here, the argument kind of gets blurry, because this story was recounted by my mom, which is a biased commentary to say the least, and I only ever heard her side of the argument. I was told that they bickered about it until the day he died when I was about 4 years old, and when I grew old enough to understand the situation, I began arguing with my mom on behalf of my grandfather. Now, here's how I see it. The deal was laid out. You are currently pregnant, and if this is my first granddaughter, I'll give you $100, meaning that her end of the deal was delivered when she delivered the first granddaughter, and his obligations were fulfilled when he, true to his word, gave her the $100 bill. Basically, it stops and starts at the first granddaughter. Well, regardless, my mom swears up and down to this day, nearly 20 years later, that her father-in-law stiffed her years ago, and she just cannot get over it. And every time I think I've argued her into the ground in front of others, and she somehow agrees that I'm right, the next time it comes up, she acts like the previous discussion never happened, and suddenly the argument begins again. My current argument is that because I'm now a trans man, and he only ever had 1 granddaughter, meaning my sister, my mom was still compensated the correct amount for the 1 girl she delivered. So I think that I win. Now, I don't remember my granddad, but he seemed like a good guy, and I'm proud that he stuck it to my mom until she couldn't reach him anymore. And now I'm happily carrying on his legacy of not letting my mom get away with any more for dumb ideas. Okay, it sounds like your mom is just one of those people who want to argue for the sake of argument. Because the fact that she's so bent out of shape over this, and she's trying to be like, man, I just can never let this go. He owes me $100. Like, seriously, that's so stupid and petty, it's honestly just not even funny. Like, the guy's dead and gone, and you still want $100 out of his pocket? Like, seriously, this is so weird. And truly, I can't stand dealing with people like this, because it really seems like there's no winning or having any conversation with them. They're always going to try and argue their point, even if they're wrong. And that, in my opinion, is not even worth entertaining. Am I the jerk for walking out of a restaurant after my sister kept making rude remarks and trying to speak on my behalf? Because right now, my parents are saying that I shouldn't have left. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister and I never really had the best relationship growing up. I've always tried to keep it civil, but she wouldn't and has always been rude to me and would try to speak on my behalf behalf as if she's my lawyer. Now, to make things relevant, I'm on the spectrum. She will constantly convince me to say no whenever others ask me a question, tell me to shut up whenever I talk to my friends or anyone that wanted to have a conversation with me, or my sister will shake her head no, either because she disapproves of something, or she simply wants me to shut up. Well, this past weekend, my parents asked me and my sister to meet with them at a restaurant for dinner, as we didn't see each other in weeks, and my parents both wanted to treat us. We met in the restaurant and everything went well until it was time to order. Now, I'm not much of an eater, so I wanted to order some of the appetizers, but my parents encouraged me to buy an entree so I can at least have some of the food to take home if I don't finish. Now, I thought about getting it, but I saw my sister just shaking her head. I asked her what her issue was, and she said that she knows I don't need the entree, and therefore I shouldn't waste my money or food. My parents told her that this isn't her concern, and that I can order for myself. So I ordered the entree that I liked, and when our food came, my sister was glaring at me the entire time. Well, I eventually finished my food, and I guess I didn't really need to take any leftovers home since they were all gone. When asked if we wanted dessert, my dad asked me if I would like some, and I said that I was full, but my dad said he would want me to at least take something home, so I ordered a cheesecake. And that was when my sister snapped at me. She called me a spoiled brat for wasting food and our father's money, while also asking me, well, why do you even need a dessert? My dad told my sister to calm down and said that she can get dessert too. Well, my sister got even more angry and called my dad names and how I'm wasting money. But the thing is, I make my own money, so I don't know what her issue was. Now, I didn't want to be around her, so I just got up and then I left. My parents begged me to stay as we planned to just get coffee somewhere else afterwards, but I declined. I couldn't stay if my sister was gonna continue to be there, and I even changed my mind on dessert. When I got home, I've gotten a couple of calls from my parents apologizing on my sister's behalf, and my mom said I shouldn't have walked out and let my sister get the better of me. She tends to defend my sister a lot, so I told her she needed to wake up and understand how my sister has always tried to control me for reasons I simply cannot understand. So right now, I really need to know, am I the jerk for walking out in the way that I did? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk, but also I think you need to understand that your parents may be more on your side than you realize. You may think that your parents are defending your sister in some kind of way, but from the sounds of it, especially based on what you described, they really did come to bat for you in the best way that they could. For reference, the original poster is 26 and their sister is 24. So these are full-grown adults that we're talking about. And from the dinner that you described, it really seems like your parents were like, wait a second, you can't talk to the original poster like that. And they even begged you to come back and not let your sister get under your skin. Because seriously, her opinion of you does not matter. She can shake her head and say, wow, you're wasting money and all this other crap, but that doesn't mean anything. Just because she controlled your life as a kid doesn't mean that can happen as an adult. So no, you're not the jerk for walking out, but I really do think that your parents are on your side way more than you might realize. Because it does not sound like they endorse your sister's behavior in the slightest, and I'm sure they just want the best for you in the best way possible. Am I the jerk for not passing it on at the food court by buying someone else's food all because the person ahead of me bought mine? Because right now I feel really guilty for not keeping it going, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was standing in a long line at a food cart, waiting for a popcorn refill, and the gentleman ahead of me gave his order and then said, and whatever this guy wants, directing his generous smile my way. I immediately protested and said, sir, you don't need to pay for mine. But he said that he wanted to, but I didn't want it to be a thing, so I thanked him. Then he looked me in the eye and expectedly said, pass it on. He then smiled again and looked at the long line behind me before turning to get his order. I got my refill of popcorn and said thank you again, and he looked so disappointed that I left instead of saying I'll pay for the guy behind me. He then stopped me and seriously said, make sure you pass it on someday. And I repeated the words of someone I once tried to pay back. I said, pay it forward, that's what it's all about. I then thanked him and then I escaped. But here's the thing, I came for the cheapest thing on the menu. Popcorn is like what, $2? And there was a large family behind me, and most of the people were coming in big groups for alcohol. So sure, I might have gotten free popcorn and I appreciate the gesture, but I might then would have had to shell out $50 for beer for a bunch of randoms. And also, I've never liked the whole pass it on thing. It's generous of the first person, and then the last person feels like a freebie. But as is often said here, all the middle people get their prices randomized, and it's literally a headache for the workers. So I will pay it forward sometime, and I definitely have in the past, but I didn't play along in the moment. And I could tell that the man felt his grand gesture was completely wasted. So seriously, am I the jerk for not going along with this weird scheme? Because right now I feel a little bit guilty. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I completely agree with you. For starters, that guy was only doing that to try and look good in front of other people and be like, oh yeah, look at what I did. This is so nice of me. And it's like, sure, that's fantastic. That really is fine. But the fact that he basically tried to make you also join in on his weird charity that you never signed up for? Like, that's dumb, and I don't blame you for being like, okay, thanks, see you later. Because seriously, that's obnoxious. And the fact that he was basically trying to like guilt trip you into doing that is also incredibly annoying. So no, you're not the jerk here, because just like you, I think this kind of stuff is super stupid and I really don't like it. Am I the jerk for refusing to help out my dad's ex-wife with rent after his passing away, even though she is struggling and my half-brother is still a minor? Because right now, I feel like I'm being guilt-tripped hard from every angle, and I really now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the situation. My dad passed away 3.5 years ago when my half-brother was 11 years old. My dad and his ex-wife have been separated for about 5 years before his death, but they weren't legally divorced. During that time, they didn't really have much contact, and she didn't join any family gatherings or events. Even during the funeral, she wasn't there, where my aunt, my grandma, and I were, and I just didn't have a close relationship with her. My dad was also struggling financially, and he didn't leave anything behind apart from a small boat that he had purchased in my name, which I sold and put the money aside for my brother's future and started paying towards his needs, such as education fees and monthly allowances for him. My dad had still been supporting my half-brother's mom financially, even though they weren't living together, and I only had to communicate with her a few times after his passing about my brother's expenses. Now here's where things get tricky. My aunt has been paying the rent for my dad's ex-wife and my half-brother for the past 3.5 years, as my dad's ex-wife claims to be struggling financially. She works full-time but also receives a pension through my dad. Now, the landlord wants them to move out, and my aunt, who's been helping with rent all this time, is not in a position to pay for the rent in the future apartment. My dad's ex-wife is now asking me for help with rent, claiming that she is still struggling. And honestly, I'm conflicted. I don't have a strong relationship with her, and I don't feel it's my responsibility to help her out with rent, especially when I'm already helping my brother. I've made it clear that I can't help her with the rent, but she is persistent and threatening me that she'll tell my brother that I'm this bad sister who's not helping him out with their housing situation, and she told me if I'm not helping out with rent, I shouldn't act like a good sister and help out on anything else as well. I feel like it's not fair that I should take on this burden when I'm already looking out for my brother's well-being, and especially when my aunt has already been helping her all this time. My primary focus is on my brother's future, and I just don't want to take on any more responsibilities that aren't my own. I also want to mention that while my dad's financially supported my dad's ex-wife when they were separated, their relationship was strained, and I never felt close to her. I'm struggling with whether I'm being unreasonable for not helping her, even though she's in a tough situation. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk for one reason only, and that's the fact that she's trying to guilt trip you using your half-brother. That, in my opinion, is like the kiss of death, and that would be the moment I would never help her with anything again. Seriously, the fact that she's trying to be like, oh, if you don't help us out, I'm gonna tell your brother that you're a bad sister. And it's like, wait a second, did you really just give me an ultimatum? Are you really gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna ruin this relationship you have? And it's like, nope, this is probably how you treated my dad when he was alive. This is not okay, and I'm not gonna play into this crap. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. This situation is so toxic it's not even funny, because the fact that she would bring your brother into this, in my opinion, shows how bad of a person she truly is. Am I the jerk for asking my friend to pay for damages to my expensive leather bag after he dumps literally a full cup of coffee all over it, staining it in a way that has completely ruined it? Because right now, he's saying it's not his responsibility and that accidents happen. But at this point, I'm still incredibly pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I own a high-end leather briefcase that I saved up for months to buy. It's a $1,800 briefcase, and it was a gift I made to myself after saving money for over a year, and I've always been super careful with it. A few days ago, I was hanging out with my friend and he asked to see it, so I handed it over, and while he was looking at it, he accidentally spilled a full cup of coffee on it. I immediately tried to wipe it off, but the coffee soaked into the leather and left a huge stain, and I was devastated. This bag cost me $1,800, and I've only had it for a few months. I took it to a professional cleaner, and they said it'll cost around $300 to remove the stain, but there's no guarantee the stain will completely come out. I told my friend I was upset, and I asked if he'd be willing to help cover the cost of the repairs. He then apologized but said it was just an accident and that I shouldn't expect him to pay for something so expensive. Now, I get that accidents happen, but this feels like a big deal to me. I offered to split the cost, but he refused, saying it's not his responsibility. Now, I feel like he should at least contribute something, but now he's acting like I'm being unreasonable. So am I the jerk for asking my friend to pay for the damages to my bag? Because at this point, I'm still incredibly pissed off. No, you're not the jerk at all. This guy ruined your bag. This thing cost you nearly $2,000. Like, my God, that's an expensive bag. And this guy clumsily dumped a full cup of coffee all over it. Like, at that point, yeah, this is your fault and you need to fix it. So no, you're not the jerk for asking, because this guy absolutely is at fault. And the fact that he's he's not willing to help out with any of the repairs, in my opinion, shows how bad of a friend he truly is. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay rent to my father after he demands over $450 a month from me, despite the fact that I'm 16 years old and still in high school? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, my mother married my stepfather when I was only 3 years old. My biological father was never in the picture, so I've always considered him to be my biological father. He always treated me fairly. However, I never got the same treatment as his biological children. And honestly, I understand it though. We never had a blood-bound relationship. He would sometimes take me out for dinner with him and his daughters, but that was the extent of our relationship besides family events. Now, I'm a 16-year-old female and recently I got a job. It's only part-time, but it allows me to get out of the house more. I've been working for over a month now, and my mother and father sat me down today for a conversation. My father started off by saying, "We want you to understand the responsibilities of becoming an adult, so we are enforcing a new rule." And I thought it would be something similar to the ones we have. Some rules we have are that I have to pay for everything now that I have a job, which totals to about $340 a month. And that includes paying for my 3 cats, my phone bills, my car insurance, any food I want from the store, and monthly supplies. Now, I don't mind paying for these items, and some of them were my idea in the first place. But it's here that my father stated he wanted me to begin paying him $450 a month for rent. He backed up his statement by saying that this would help me to become responsible with my spending habits, because in his words, I spend too much money. Well, my mother agreed with him, stating that if I wanted to continue all the luxury I had in the household, I would need to pay rent. And when they said that, I was appalled to say the least. I never thought I would have to pay rent, especially if it's over half my paycheck. For a while, I stared at them confused, but then I began to ask questions, to which they repeated the same things said above. I told them that my 18-year-old sister never had to pay rent, and she still lives at home. My father just replied and said, "Well, that's because she never worked." And at this point, I was getting frustrated, so I just went straight up to my room. My mother followed me up the stairs, trying to comfort me by saying that this will help me grow as a person and become a responsible adult. My mother is also one of those people who can't tell others no and tries to become the victim in every situation. I told her I won't be paying rent and that she shouldn't require me to pay anything. She tried to guilt me into paying, but I told her to leave me alone. I then texted my friend about the whole situation, and she told me to suck it up and listen to my father because he is the main provider for the family and my father at the end of the day. I don't think I was in the wrong, but others might disagree. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, this is so messed up it's not even funny. No, you're definitely not the jerk for not wanting to pay that, because your parents' rationale is completely twisted. They don't want you to pay rent so you'll be a better member of society and a more responsible adult. They want you to pay rent at the age of 16, by the way, because they literally want money out of your pocket. Like, that's the only reason they're trying to be like, "Oh, you're still a minor, but guess what? You have to pay rent." Like, that really is so stupid and completely unfair. Your older sister doesn't even work and she never pays rent, and yet they don't go to her and say, "Okay, you're 18 years old, it's time to pay rent if you want to live here." Like, that really is so dumb. I honestly don't blame you for being pissed off, because in my opinion, it really seems like your family are just a bunch of leeches, especially your father, who I can only assume is the person who spearheaded this idea. Like, this guy's already treating you differently, all because you're not his biological daughter, but then for him to turn around and be like this and be like, "Oh yeah, you need to pay rent, $450 a month, please." Like, if this doesn't prove that he's a massive leech and he's just trying to take money out of your pocket, then honestly, I don't know what will. So no, you're not the jerk, and if I was in your shoes, I might even consider quitting that job, because if that job means you have to give up literally half your paycheck to them, then in my opinion, it is simply not worth having it in the first place. My toxic, creepy brother has flirted with my future husband in ways that are completely unacceptable. And now, after dealing with his awful treatment towards me and my life, I've decided that I'm going to ban him from my wedding, causing my family to lose their minds on me as they say that I'm being overdramatic. Here's what happened. Okay, so I come from a big blended family and recently bought an engagement ring with my long-term partner. Now, we're not even officially engaged. I'm just a planner and I have started getting things ready. We have been together for multiple years and have maintained a pretty close relationship with most of my family. Although there is family drama all around, my older brother, who we will call Trevor, has been a problem for a while. I told my mom this weekend that Trevor is not on the guest list, and she has been all over the map. Most recently, she told me that I cannot get married without him there. Now, for a bit of context, Trevor lives in his parents' basement and can be a bit misogynistic. He basically says horrible things about women, and my mom blames it on him being autistic. Now, I am a huge trigger for him. I have a master's degree and he's still working on his bachelor's. I also have no problem with this fact, but he believes that I succeed academically and professionally just to make him look bad. We're in similar fields, but my actual degree is different from his his. He wouldn't even go to my graduation or my graduation party because he was very bitter about all of that. A month before graduation, he said that I only succeeded because it all comes easy to me and that I throw it in his face that he struggles academically. Now, I don't feel like I've ever done this, but he has been very upset by my academic success regardless. My relationship is also a very sore subject. Right as I started dating my current partner, my brother's engagement fell apart. It was messy and they were both intense at the time. He's had a couple of serious partners since then, but I feel his toxic behavior is a part of the reason he hasn't found a healthy relationship. He's also been inappropriate with my partner, sat on top of him, sent Snapchats saying my partner is his boyfriend, and generally made my very kind and supportive partner feel uncomfortable. My partner has said if it was up to him, he wouldn't invite Trevor, but he wants it to be up to me. Now, I haven't really spoken to or interacted with Trevor in about a year. He damaged about $3,000 worth of another person's property and wouldn't accept his role in the situation and said that our parents would just pay for it. And I find that kind of behavior appalling. He wouldn't take accountability. He had our parents solve his problems, and it just seemed immature. All of that coupled with this treatment of me in the past led to me minimizing contact. My mom has tried to get me to talk to him, but I feel Trevor is at fault for the cracks in our relationship, meaning that he can be the one to try and mend the situation. I feel if I invite him to my wedding, he will get drunk and be messy and embarrass me. He'll insult me and flirt with my partner and end up upsetting one or both of us in some kind of way, and I'm sure that he will cause a scene. At the end of the day, it is my wedding and I say no, but my mom thinks that I'm being immature and inflexible. So would I be the jerk if I banned my brother from coming to my wedding? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you would not be the jerk. This is so obnoxious. First of all, this guy is not misogynistic because he's autistic. Like, there's no correlation there. That guy's just a terrible person. And the fact that your mom is trying to defend that in any kind of way, let alone blame that on autism, is so weird to me. But also, this guy sounds like a mess. Seriously, he's trying to be like, wow, anytime you succeed, it makes me look bad. And it's like, no, stupid, I'm just living my own life. You're the one that has nothing going for you, and you're somehow, I don't know, bitter and jealous about it. Because the fact of the matter is, you have done nothing wrong. You literally haven't done anything to this guy. And he's sitting there trying to be like, wow, you have just completely ruined everything for me. Now, when it comes to him flirting with your partner and sitting on him and being like, oh yeah, this is my boyfriend, that is super weird and that is unbelievably inappropriate. That crosses a serious line for me. And that example alone would be like, oh yeah, you're definitely banned from my wedding. You're never showing up. So in my opinion, it would not be dramatic for you to say this guy cannot show up. Regardless of if he's your brother or not, this guy has proven to be completely toxic and unable to control himself in any situation. And that is something that I do not think that you should ever have to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to stop thinking she's the only one who can do it all after she rolled up to my house with an awful attitude? Here's what happened. Okay, I am most likely the jerk, but my parents, who think that they are the only ones who can keep the world going, tend to drive me crazy. For a little bit of background, I'm a 47-year-old male, and I've had issues with this one neighbor before when she told me that my house gives her anxiety, and I have been trying to just avoid her in general. After this one incident, I have just avoided her at all cost, and if there's anything that we need to talk about, it goes through the parents' email systems through the school. So anyways, there's a school banquet coming up soon, and I have volunteered a couple of times for it. I forgot it was coming up, so naturally I didn't say anything. Well, she stopped over the other day to see if I was interested this year. From the past experience, my house was in a midweek state, so it was kind of an organized chaos. She said that she was at another parent's house a couple of houses down from us, so she felt like it was easier to just stop over than email, and I guess it could be believable. She asked about the banquet, and I looked at the calendar, and I saw that my stepson was going to be gone for that weekend. So I told her no, I was not going to be helping, and that I was actually relieved because there's a lot that we have going on right now. Now you might be wondering, this really should have been the end of it, right? Well, I thought so, but I was completely wrong. My neighbor then started on her own tangent about everything she does to manage her house, and that includes managing all the kids' events, and how she does it all herself with no help. And I don't know why she told me all of this. I then told her, and these were my exact words. Well, good for you. I'm lucky because in this household, we all pull together and help one another out. My husband, stepson, and myself, we all share the house responsibilities. Maybe enlist your husband and kids to do the same thing. It might help free up some time. Well, when I said that, she looked at me like I had a third eyeball and told me that nobody knows how to organize the family like she does. I told her, well, that was her own fault for making it so that nobody could live up to her standards. And when I said that, well, she didn't really like that that answer. I told her I needed to get my own stuff done and that she needed to go. Well, as a result of this conversation, I'm now the public enemy number one among the school moms, which is no big deal to me. This is all just a giant clique. But from what I heard earlier, I'm the jerk for not understanding what it's like to be a parent these days. And this really is funny to me. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling a parent to stop trying to do it all? Because right now I'm still incredibly annoyed. Oh boy, it sounds like you have a crazy neighbor and that is so frustrating. First of all, the fact that she's like, oh, I don't like your house, it gives me anxiety. Like, first of all, that doesn't make any sense. And also, what does that mean? Like the sight of your house gives her anxiety, or she just doesn't like what you do in your house? Because both of those answers are like completely irrational. But for her to show up and be like, oh, I do all this stuff, what do you mean you can't do the same? And it's like, I don't know, lady, maybe I'm able to share the load and you're not. Like, I can't help you with that. So truly, with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And I really think that your neighbor is just a busybody who clearly needs to mind her own business. My mother wants to get a divorce and then move into my new home. And when she told me this, I feel completely blindsided, as I feel that she's manipulated this entire situation in a way that honestly makes me believe she was planning this from the very beginning. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I are in the process of buying a new home, and we are weeks away from exchanging contracts. We live in the United Kingdom, and house prices are awful, so it's been hard saving up for our first place. As a result, we have spent the last year living with my parents, who are also generously gifting us about $20,000 for the deposit. This has been difficult enough for me, but it has been incredibly hard on my fiance. She works a very stressful job and doesn't feel she can truly unwind when she gets home. My parents are laid back, but they have their quirks. My mom will often cook on my fiance's off days, despite knowing this is her biggest hobby and the thing that she loves to do just to relax. She will often ask prying questions to know more about our relationship. My mother is very family oriented, but despite having conversations with her, she does struggle to set boundaries. Anyways, last night, my mom brought me over and she talked to me about how she may want to have a divorce. And honestly, this probably should have happened well into my childhood, but I thought, yeah, that's kind of reasonable. But right at the very end of the conversation, she states that she could then move in with us in the second room, which by the way was supposed to be my study, as I do have some work from home days. I didn't react and I tried to play it cool, but I'm honestly losing my mind right now. And yes, I know this probably comes off as incredibly selfish. My parents have been very generous with the gift and letting us live here. I am 100% planning on paying back their deposit when I can, and would have always looked after my parents when they got older and needed more support. However, I now feel like this has been my mom's plan from the very start. My fiance has literally been counting down the days when she gets independence. She wasn't even keen on the idea of saving up by staying with my parents in the first place, and I'm now wondering whether we just ditch it all and rent instead, or move to a significantly cheaper city. I haven't spoken yet to my fiance about this because she has already been feeling very low about her current living circumstances. Does anyone have any ideas on how best to handle this? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, there's no way I would ever go through with buying that house. Your mom absolutely was planning this from the beginning. If you take that $20,000 and put it towards that house, she will always have that over your head, pretty much until the end of time, until you pay her back. She'll then be like, oh, well, I already gave you $20,000 and I let you live in my house. Why can't I stay with you after I get my divorce? Like, that is absolutely what's going to happen, and that is going to be a living nightmare. And it is very clear that your fiance does not like your mom at all. Like, seriously, this is not a good fit. So if I was in your shoes, yes, absolutely, I would move, find something else, and rent, because your mom is planning something very nefarious towards your relationship. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair, and it's only going to cause you and your fiance a lot of damage. My entitled landlord refuses to listen to what I have to say over a $60 internet bill. And despite the fact that that should have been paid through my rent, I decided to get some petty revenge by signing up for my own internet plan in the house that I was renting. And even though this is going to cause some headaches down the line, it still felt good to get back at my landlord in a way that they would never expect. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, there is some backstory here to give some proper context. I'm currently renting a house from my niece's father, who is currently serving a small prison sentence. I rented the house because I was in need of a place to stay, and he was running out of time to get his house ready for tenants. For reference, he had been remodeling before he was locked up and sent to county jail for 7 months until he was sentenced. Now, it was livable, but there was some unfinished flooring, it needed some trim, the temporary plywood countertops need some real ones installed, there's some doors that are broken and need replacing, and the list goes on and on. And this is mostly smaller work considering I'm a contractor, and I could blow these jobs out fast, and the idea was to take the work off the rent. Now, the inmate's mother is who I'm dealing with when it comes to paying rent. The inmate and I discussed rent being about $1,600 a month. This would include covering the mortgage, water, water, sewer, and internet service. All of these things are also at a fixed cost, meaning that they don't fluctuate like gas and electric will. So I pay those direct with the bill that comes to the house. Along with this, I would do some of the work around here while he was gone. Specifically speaking, I would be working on the internet. We discussed it would be easier for him to not have to pay to cancel his service and have it taken from the rent, especially considering we do not get a physical bill sent to the house. The bill only shows up on the application that is on the phone in the inmate's mother's possession. Well, here's where things get really crazy. A few days ago, the internet was out, so I messaged his mom and let her know. When she was able to respond, she informed me the bill hadn't been paid and proceeds to send me the monthly statements. Now, at that point, I explained what our agreement was, but she wasn't hearing any of it, refusing to believe that this was the agreement. But I simply don't want to pay for something I was under the impression I already paid for. Not to mention, I don't even have access to the bill to pay it. And if I have to ask you for the bill every month, it literally just doesn't make sense, and at that point, I'll just get my own service. It's honestly a pretty simple situation. And well, with that in mind, that's exactly what I did. The conversation with the inmate's mother took place at 7:00 p.m., and I was on the phone with a new internet service provider by 8:00 p.m. and had install set up the next day by 9:00 in the morning. Also, the installer came early and I had internet by 9:15 in the morning. Well, now you'll pay me for those outstanding statements yourself, and you'll be paying the company $300 contract cancellation fee. Also, any of the work I was planning on doing, I will now invoice time and material at $75 an hour, which is still way cheaper than I bill out. And you know what? The money is peanuts to me. I don't really care about $60, but I really just wanted to have a civil discussion about all of this. And even after all of this, I'm actually paying more because I'm not subtracting the original internet service from the rent. Admittedly, where I screwed up was not getting it in writing before this guy went to prison, but honestly, it's whatever. I found a solution and I just decided to move on. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where it's like, oh man, you really should have got this in writing, because literally this is what happens. People pull one over on you, they're like, oh yeah, that's not gonna work for me. And it's like, wait a second, this is what we agreed upon. And then some third party comes in and says, well, I don't know about that. So yeah, it was kind of a misstep by not having it in writing, but at least you know now, because the way this lady acted, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for refusing to loan my expensive camera to my friend for her vacation? Because right now she's saying that I'm selfish and I'm acting paranoid, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male and I've been in photography for years, and I recently invested in a high-end DSLR camera and lenses. It's not just a hobby for me. I sometimes do freelance gigs and my equipment is worth thousands of dollars. Well, my friend, who we will call Jessica, is planning a vacation to Europe and mentioned that she wanted to take better photos than what her phone could manage. And a few days ago, she casually asked if she could borrow my camera for her trip. Well, I immediately said no, explaining that the camera is expensive, fragile, and requires some knowledge to use it properly. Jessica then said to me that she's careful with things and that it's not that big of a deal because it's just sitting there while I'm not using it. But I stood firm and I told her that it wasn't personal. I just don't loan out my camera to anybody. Jessica then got upset and said that I was selfish and paranoid. She even joked and said, what's the worst that could happen? It's not like I'm going to drop it in the ocean or something like that. Well, ever since then, she's been a bit distant and has told a mutual friend that I'm stingy and not supportive. One friend even said that I could have just let her borrow it, as it's not like I'll need it while she's gone. Now, I feel bad that Jessica is upset, but I also don't think I should risk my expensive equipment for her vacation photos. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing here? Because right now, I'm really confused. No, you're not the jerk at all. This is the only smart decision here. In case you're not aware, some of these cameras and lenses can be really expensive. So when the original poster says, yeah, this is worth thousands of dollars, I definitely believe them. So I'm personally right there with them by saying, no, you're not taking this camera. Your friend could go buy one at the store that's way cheaper than that will probably take better photos than the camera she has on her phone. And that easily could suffice for what she wants to do for this stupid vacation. And I find it so funny that she's saying that you're selfish and paranoid, because yeah, of course you're gonna be selfish and paranoid. It's not like the friend's gonna pay for it if she drops it and breaks it. If anything, she'll be like, oops, accidents happen, and then like never pay for anything she damages, and then you're stuck footing the bill just to repair it. So no, of course you're not the jerk here. The friend is clearly the one being selfish, and I don't blame you for immediately shutting that down. My entitled mother volunteered me to buy her friend's son a day pass to a ski resort that I get a discount at as a college student. And I'm honestly so annoyed by this entire scenario that right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female in college, and my mom has a bad habit of asking me to do random stuff. We do not get along, and we never really have. Today, I got a text from a random message asking if I would buy a day pass for their son this Saturday at the local ski resort. Keep in mind, I do not know these people. The kid is friends with my younger brother who's 17, but I've never met him or his parents. My sister is a year younger than me and goes to the same college that I do and can get the same discount. Not to mention I have to work on Saturday and I am not going to be late because I have to go pick up a pass at the ski hill and then meet up with these random people. So I texted my mom about it. She claimed she didn't give the lady my number, but where else would she have gotten it from? My mom then said that I was being dramatic, but they literally request ID when you go to pick up the ticket, and I have to sign waivers and stuff in my name. The kid is 15 years old and it would be a college student pass. So I politely text the lady back and I tell her that I have to work and I'm not sure how all that works and that I'm sorry I can't help. But my mom is now acting like I committed one of the 7 deadly sins. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because this is honestly so confusing. No, you're not the jerk. This is so annoying. I cannot stand when people try to volunteer me for stuff that I did not want to sign up for. And that includes helping out some random stranger I've never met. Like if this was a family friend or someone that I had met in some kind of way and had a connection to, then sure, I'd be happy to help out, even if I'm not a fan of being like volunteered for it in some kind of way. But this is clearly a situation where your mom ran her mouth a little too much and she ended up signing you up for something that clearly you never agreed to. I've run into that a bunch in my own life and I'm sure some of you listening have as well. And that feeling is so irritating because it's like, oh my gosh, just leave me alone. I did not sign up to do this and I don't want to deal with any backlash if it goes wrong. So no, you're not the jerk here. This behavior is so annoying and I don't blame you for getting pissed off because your mom is crossing a serious boundary in my opinion, and this is definitely something that needs to stop sooner than later. An entitled jerk acts like he owns my college parking lot as he literally parks his car sideways and blocks 2 parking spots close to the front of the school, which then literally prevented me from getting to class on time. And so in my frustration, I decided to report this guy, and I really hope he gets in trouble for the crappy things that he just did. Here's what happened. So today is already a really awful day. We were hit with a wet snowstorm. So it snowed and then rained, and now there's a combo of slush, sleet, and ice on the roads. And it's still pouring and it's really cold. Not to mention that I also woke up late for class, so overall it's not the best start to the morning. So I get to my college's parking lot. Despite my college having several parking lots, the actual part you drive down is very narrow and only a couple of the rows are one way, so it's already cramped. And turning into the parking space itself is also narrow and tricky if there's another car in the spot next to the one you're pulling into. So I'm driving the road trying to find a parking space when I see this car parked sideways and literally blocking 2 parking spots. Well, I pull up behind him and he doesn't move at all. He gives me a dirty look in his driver's side mirror and continues smoking his cigarette. He then proceeds to eat something and throw the plastic wrapper out the window. This guy's also like 50 years old and he might be a student, but most likely he's not. And it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Why must you block not only the row that is already so narrow to begin with, but also block 2 of the closest parking spaces in the pouring rain at 8 in the morning in awful weather when students are trying to get to class? Furthermore, why in the world are you littering? People who litter are the epitome of trash. Trashy people with trashy behavior. Well, I did call security as I didn't see the parking sticker or the pass on his car, because even if he is a student, why don't you just park your car and eat your food and smoke your stupid cigarettes? Or why don't you just go home and dump your trash on your kitchen floor? Why must you take it upon yourself to make everyone else's day a little bit harder for no reason? So yeah, I'm really hoping this day gets better because I really hate driving in the rain. Wow, this guy's a massive jerk. Seriously, this guy went out of his way to not only take up 2 parking spots, but also just throws his crap all over the place. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I think we've all been there where we're trying to find a parking spot in some kind of like organization, whether it's college or not. But trust me, if you've been to college, then you know that yeah, there's no parking available, especially if there's no like assigned spots that you can run to. So if there's like an open lot and it's like, okay, first come, first serve, then you know you better grab one of those spots or else you are completely screwed. So this guy taking up 2 spots is like mind-numbing, because I can probably guess exactly what happened to the original poster here, all because this guy took up those spots. They kept driving down this stupid road to find a parking spot, only to then discover that yeah, there's no spots available and you are completely screwed. And so then they have to park in the very back of the parking lot, and they're now even more late to their class in the rain, in the snow, in this icy, crappy weather. And yeah, I think we can all relate to that to some degree because that really sucks. So yeah, that guy was being a massive jerk for acting that way, and I don't blame you for reporting him in the slightest, because what he was doing was very unfair for you and literally anybody else that would drive by. My entitled homeless friends are refusing to leave my house and find somewhere else to live, because after letting them in just to be nice and give them somewhere to stay, they have now taken full advantage of me, as they refuse to find any other place that they can live. So now I'm considering calling the police because at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My fiance and I were letting 2 of our friends stay with us temporarily IDOWorkHereLady. For the sake of the story, we'll call my fiance Max and these two friends Sunny and Lester. All names are fake in this story. For a bit of context, they have both gotten kicked out early December. Where we live, it is very cold, and they told us they didn't have anywhere else to go. And when they said that, we told them that they had until January 20th. Well, fast forward to around close to the 20th, and we reminded them, where we then gave them until the 25th. And this was a bad decision on our part, but Max and I both have big hearts. But then beyond that, they asked for another week, which then turned into 3. And now we're looking at 2 months since they moved in, when they only said they would be a month. They have not paid us anything, and they have racked up all of our utilities to about $300. And this is more since they moved in because they are constantly leaving lights on. They've been gone a week and haven't said anything about coming back. Max has been texting Sunny trying to know when they're getting back because she said they were packing, but then they left for a week. Lester then took Sunny's phone and texted Max a nasty text message about always talking to Sunny and not him. But it's not like Lester can respond anyways because his phone has no service. And honestly, at this point, I'm done. I don't care how much I sound like a jerk, but I went into their room to get the dishes that they left, which when I grabbed all the cups and plates that they left in there, they were all covered in mold. Not to mention that the room smelled like the herb, if you know what I mean. And that's the other thing. They are constantly smoking that stuff, and we let them do that for a while on the porch. We thought they went to a friend's place, but it turns out they were smoking the herb inside my house. So I always smelled it, but Max didn't, so I thought I was going crazy. So anyways, I'm in their room and it was full of moldy dishes, as well as a can covered in the residue from the herb and cleaning out what they used to smoke the herb. Also, Max's baseball cards were in there, and those were cards that he left in the room hidden away in a dresser drawer. Now, I didn't look in, but Max did, and the baseball cards are basically worthless because you wouldn't know unless you looked at it, especially because they were raked out of the closet. So right now, I'm either going to be calling the police and trespassing them on our house because they have no standing here legally. They just refuse to leave, and I can't just not let them back in because they do have clothes here, and I do not want to get into any legal trouble with that. At this point, I'm just going to pack their garbage and leave it by the dumpster because them being here is affecting my relationship. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be changing the locks, I would get their stuff out of my house, and I would leave it on the curb. I would then text them and be like, don't come back, you're not welcome here. Because what you're describing sounds like a nightmare. And sure, maybe there is some kind of like legality associated with this, but in my opinion, I would make sure they never come back in there and even consult like a lawyer or someone to try and help you get this going. Like, these people are literally destroying your property in a way that is probably going to be irreparable. Like, think about it. They have mold on the dishes and the cups and plates, and that is not something that happens overnight. That means they probably had those plates in there since like December, the second they came into your house. And that legitimately puts a chill up my spine. That is so disgusting, it's not even funny. So if I was in your shoes, they would be gone and they would never be welcome back. I would say that they have to go and find some other accommodation because this situation is disgusting and you do not deserve to deal with this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled customer who used to be my friend absolutely loses his mind after I give him incorrect change, causing a series of events to happen in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old female, and when I was going through a really rough time at home, I found a diner nearby that I could go drink coffee and chat with the old folks when I needed to escape. I got along very well with the owner. He reminded me of my Italian godfather that passed away. At the time, the diner was just a safe environment that meant the world to me. I made friends with many of the customers that sit at the counter, including a 90-year-old Korean war vet, a high school guidance counselor, a retired professional boxer, plenty of Vietnam vets, and a state trooper. I got to hear so many stories and make so many friendships that I still have today. Over the course of a few months, things got bad enough that I left home with my little brother with no place to go, and I needed a job that I could have cash immediately so that I could afford to keep us in a local hotel. Well, I begged the old man to hire me. It took a couple of weeks because I didn't want him or anyone, frankly, to know how desperately I needed that job. And not just for the cash, but with everything going on, I just wanted to be somewhere I felt safe. Well, he hired me, and I learned the menu and the computers within 2 days. I got along with even the most prickly of staff, and most importantly, the customers love me already. I was working my first really crazy busy shift around Valentine's Day, which is only my second time working on the counter, and having an additional 6 booths to take care of. I was smiling ear to ear, making quick jokes with regulars, keeping my order tickets organized, and no one's food sat for more than 20 seconds. Frankly, I was completely overwhelmed at this time. Overwhelmed to a point that was absolutely awful. In fact, I was only smiling so I wouldn't start crying. crying. But you know what? I didn't stop smiling. I never slammed anything. I never gave an attitude. I literally did nothing wrong. I saw the state trooper come in and I actually sighed in relief because this is my friend. I mean, I sat with him on so many busy days before I ever worked there. We talked about work and our families and cars and politics. So this really was my friend. He knew that I was brand new, so maybe I just assumed he'd be more understanding, especially since we both saw how chaotic and tense it can get in here. So I made a quick joke as he sat down, got his drink order, and he told me his order straight away. And then he told me he was in a rush. So I grabbed his drink, put his order in, and brought it to him the second it was in the window. I would say that maybe 3/4 of his coffee cup was full, but he was annoyed I hadn't topped off his coffee within 4 minutes to keep it super hot. Now, because he was in a rush, I said something like, "I'm sorry, Dave, I'm doing my best. Honestly, I'm a little overwhelmed." And I laughed and poured his coffee, then got back to running food and taking orders. He then waved me down to pay his check, and the total was $11.82. He gave me a $20 bill, and I gave him $9 back to save myself time from counting change. Well, when this happened, he lost his mind. He said to me, "I want my change back." I then looked at him and I said, "What? Wait, did you need quarters for the meter for work? Because your change was supposed to be like $8.18. I could change one of the dollars for quarters if you want." He then freaked out on me even more and said, "No, I want my proper change." I then said to him, "Okay, that's fine. I'll need one of those dollars back though. I was trying to round up for you." Now at this point, I could see he was legitimately angry and balling up his fists. He kept saying to me, "You can't rip me off." And I kept saying, "Dave, I wasn't ripping you off. I gave you more change than you were supposed to get so I could save some time. We sit together all the time. Are you joking right now?" Well, after that, he wouldn't speak another word to me. I didn't fight with him on the extra dollar, and I just gave him the extra 18 cents. He then sent a nasty letter to my boss calling me a thief, which is ridiculously offensive to me, and on top of that, he didn't come in for years. Well, he somehow got the impression that I moved away, and he started coming in again. I was on vacation and had a new schedule, and I worked a fill-in the other day, and he was there. And guess what? He wouldn't speak to me or even look at me. The little man jumped into his giant lifted pickup truck and burned so much rubber leaving that you could smell it in the restaurant. So I got his license plate and called it in to report it since he almost hit someone in the parking lot. Also, my car tires were missing all the things that screw onto the top of the tires to keep the air in when I left. Well, it turns out that Dave got arrested for domestic violence. He lost his badge and his weapon and has no contact with his kids anymore. Now, I'm not sure if I caused this or if I saved the public from a much worse reaction during a traffic stop, and I do feel terrible for his family, but boy, am I glad he can't legally carry a weapon anymore. So honestly, my biggest message to anyone else that's serving, don't fight over the small stuff. Speak softly and carry a big stick, because some people out here are completely crazy. Wow, this guy is completely out of his mind. Seriously, this is someone that you literally have sat next to and gotten to know really well. So for him to be like, "Oh, you're a worker now? Suddenly you're beneath me and I'm gonna act like a complete psychopath." Because that's literally what Dave did. This guy was completely off his rocker for acting that way, and honestly, I don't blame you for being like, "Wait a second, Dave, what's wrong? Why are you freaking out on me right now? I thought we were friends." I've worked in job situations like that before where like supposed friends kind of treat me different, all because I was working in some kind of customer service role. And it's honestly more confusing than anything else. You would think that someone who's calling you a friend would be like, "Oh, cool, you're working, let me not bother you." But instead, when you run into someone who's like, "Oh, you're a worker here," and they turn into like this monster, like really, it is so awful. So truly, to the original poster, I know where you're coming from, and I'm so sorry that you have to deal with that, because that honestly sounds like a complete nightmare, and I honestly don't blame you for being upset. My toxic parents have ruined every single relationship I've ever had by quite literally chasing off my boyfriends in a way that has ruined everything I've ever wanted. But now, my current boyfriend of 2 years is wanting to finally meet my parents for the first time, and I'm now worried that my parents are going to ruin this relationship as well, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was very shy during high school, and I didn't leave my house unless I had to. So as a result, I didn't get a boyfriend until my freshman year of college. After 7 months of dating my first ever boyfriend, I brought him to my parents' house for dinner, you know, just so they could meet him. I then had to step away for roughly 10 minutes to help my older sister with her baby, and when I came back, my boyfriend and my dad were having a full-blown fist fight. We managed to stop them, and my boyfriend stormed off without saying anything, while my dad insisted that my boyfriend was incredibly rude and disrespectful to him and my mother, and that a guy like that was no good for me because he would just end up doing the same thing to me. Now, I was shocked that my boyfriend could do such a thing because he has always been extremely sweet, and I've never met or heard of anyone not liking him. But when I called him and told him what my dad had said about what had happened, all he did was laugh and say I can believe whatever I want, all before blocking me on everything. I was deeply disturbed by this, but my mom and sister insisted that he had just shown his true colors and said that my dad had saved me from an awful person. Now, I reluctantly accepted this, but something about it felt really off. I then met my second boyfriend several months later during my sophomore year. Part of me still felt my parents were the problem with my last boyfriend. So I managed to get him to wait an entire year before introducing him to my parents. From the moment she laid eyes on him, every word my mother spoke to him was dripping with fake friendliness and subtle jabs implying that she did not approve of him, which made him visibly uncomfortable. While we were eating dinner, she began asking me why I made the decision to date my boyfriend and asked about other guys and why they didn't work out. And for reference, some of the guys she asked about were completely made up. At this point, it was clear what they were trying to do, and I silently vowed to talk to my boyfriend and tell him how my parents were trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, I didn't get that far, as my dad chipped in and demanded to know how a boy who couldn't support himself financially was ever going to support his daughter. Mind you, we were both juniors in college at this point, and both of us were working part-time jobs, so this question was really insane. Well, he responded by saying that he already had decided he wanted nothing to do with this family and was planning to break up with me when he got home, but instead he's just gonna leave now. Well, within minutes he was gone and I was blocked yet again. Now my parents insisted they did nothing wrong and just wanted to test his confidence as any parents would, but I pointed out that this was the second boyfriend they chased away and they didn't do anything to scare off my older sister's husband. I then went low contact with them after that, but fast forward a little bit and I eventually allowed them to gaslight me into introducing them to my third boyfriend, whom I had met towards the end of my senior year. And guess what? Basically the exact same thing happened. I had made it through college unable to find a long-term boyfriend purely because of my parents. Now I did meet my current boyfriend 2 years ago, and I have managed to avoid introducing him to my family thus far. If he ever brought it up, I would always have a ready-made excuse prepared to explain why it wasn't possible, which has been pretty easy because he usually only asks about them when planning for major holidays. I have fallen madly in love with him, and I hope to start a family with him one day, but he recently told me that he can't even allow me to move in with him until he's had the chance to meet my family. And right now, I do not know what to do, as I know my parents will make it their mission to break us up if they meet him. But based on his insistence on meeting them, I realize I can't put this off any longer. Usually, relationships end because of something one person in the relationship says or does, and it's incredibly unfair that I always end up being single because of things I cannot control. I want to tell my boyfriend about my parents and insist that meeting them is a bad idea, but I've listened in on some of his conversations with his friends, and the general consensus among them seems to be that a girl with a super dysfunctional family is a massive red flag and an indicator of what their married life would be like. So I come here asking, how do I approach the problem that is my parents without risking losing the longest relationship that I've ever had? If my parents end up being the cause of yet another breakup, I honestly would lose my mind. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to their situation. Here's what they had to say. First off, I made this post about an hour before going to bed, but I woke up to quite a few comments here. So thank you to everybody who's helped me realize what I need to do. I've read through all the comments and I saw some reoccurring questions come up that I wanted to address. For starters, I am not fully no contact with my parents, primarily because they helped me a lot financially during college and when I first graduated and was looking for a job. When I went low contact with them, they constantly yelled at me for being ungrateful and said family does not turn on each other over minor disagreements involving boys. It sounds ridiculous when I type it here, but after months of this treatment, when I found myself faced with the decision to either tell them I forgive them so they'll pay for my dorm room or refuse to forgive them and have to move back home, I ended up caving. Now you might be asking, why didn't I stand up for my past boyfriends when I saw them being verbally attacked? And honestly, I don't know. I've never been allowed to talk back to my parents, so the thought of calling them out while we had company over is not something I realized I could do, I guess. My arguments with them after they ran off boyfriend number 2 and 3 were the only times I've ever come into full conflict with them in my entire life. So I will be going to my boyfriend's house today after work and I will tell him everything. I am terrified that he will still want to meet them, and just thinking about it has me shaking at my desk, but I think all of you are right. He has a right to know and make his own decision. Holy crap, your parents are awful people. Seriously, they chased off 3 of your boyfriends, and the first one being a fist fight. Like, what happened in those 10 minutes? Now, I want to address a few things you said in your update that honestly I would not feel bad about, because you said it best. You can either forgive them and they pay for your dorm, or you say, no, I don't forgive you, and then you move back home. Because guess what? If I was in that situation, I would be like, yes, I forgive you, and I would just move on and play the game and just whistle past the graveyard, because the alternative is not being able to go to college. It's like, okay, you want me to forgive you? I'll say that I forgive you. If that means my stuff gets paid for, then fine. So in that regard, I would not feel bad about that decision because you did what you needed to do. So with that in mind, I think you need to do the same thing with your current boyfriend. It sounds like this is a keeper and you really like him, but I think telling him everything that's going on, as well as the past 3 boyfriends you've tried to have, that really would be the best course of action. Because you said it yourself, he has a right to know and to make his own decision. And I don't agree with that sentiment of like anyone assuming that just because your family's weird, that somehow means that you're gonna be a bad partner. Like, that is complete baloney in my opinion, and I just don't believe that. Because I've seen people who have had really chaotic home lives who end up being normal partners and having a really good marriage or relationship or whatever. So yes, your parents suck big time. They have literally stifled your growth when it comes to having a relationship, and I honestly don't blame you for trying to hide your boyfriend away from these people. My ex-colleague screwed me out of 70% of what he owed me for a job I completed for him. So I got some revenge by returning the favor in a way that he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was back in 2010 when Facebook was the de facto social media. I'm a content writer and I was in between jobs. An ex-colleague reached out to me and said that he was making a corporate film and needed a script writer. So I jumped to the offer, although I regret that we only did an oral agreement on the payment amount. So I submitted the first draft, and then he pointed out 1,000 reasons why he didn't like it, so I did a second and then a third draft. But he just kept rejecting it, even though magically the text had been already translated to our native language and was being used in production. So I put my foot down and I said no. First, pay me the full amount for any more revisions. Well, he stopped communicating after that, and I realized that I'd been taken for a ride. Eventually, his film was complete, and I sent him a long text message bashing him for breaking my trust. So, purely out of guilt, he paid me 30%, saying that's what my work was worth. A few months later, I got a job at a big corporation that used to hire production houses to make documentaries about its philanthropic work. I had absolutely nothing to do with that department, but I decided to use it as a carrot. I then put up a Facebook post about it. I had around 50 friends if I remember correctly, and I manually hid the post from 49 of them, so it was only visible to this one guy. Well, he took the bait and messaged me asking how to apply, and it was then that I gave him a piece of my mind and said that he had no integrity and I would not work with him. But after that, he took the bait, and he then promptly transferred me the remaining amount that he owed me. So I played along. The department in fact did hire companies annually, but it would always happen in the month of April, and we were in December at the time. So I fished out the form and I sent it for him to fill out. I told him the process is long and tedious, and he would not hear back before April. Well, to be honest, I never submitted his form, and when he called me back in April, I said, sorry, we had several applications and you were not selected. But all in all, it felt really good to get back at my former boss because he truly screwed me over. Wow, this former colleague is an absolute piece of garbage. Seriously, if you're gonna treat people like that, you better be ready for the consequences. Because in my opinion, what this colleague got was like the bare minimum of what they deserved. Because nothing pisses me off more than someone not getting paid what they're worth, especially when they're getting taken advantage of in the way that this guy took advantage of the original poster. Am I the jerk for threatening to sue my cousin's friend after she hit my car and has been refusing to pay for it? Because right now I'm honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I was at my grandmother's house last Friday when a friend of my cousin reversed into my car. I caught part of it on my phone camera, which showed her pulling away after hitting my car. I took photos of the damage, then messaged the cousin's friend to discuss how she was going to pay for the repair. She then decided to add me to a group WhatsApp call instead of replying privately. In the group call, I called her out using her name, the color, make, and model of her car, and her license plate, and I mentioned that I had video proof. She asked me what I expected from her, and I gave her 2 options: meet up the next Saturday and exchange insurance, or pay $2,500 in cash. She expressed concern over using insurance due to rate hikes and said that she didn't have the cash. I then offered to let her put a credit card on file at the shop, and I said I would have them cap the charges on her card at $2,500. And honestly, not surprising enough, she didn't like that either. My final offer was to tell her that she had till Thursday, meaning today, to notify me of what she wanted to do. If I didn't hear from her by that point, I would file a police report and pursue a small claim suit. She then tried to counter by saying the damage was from a previous incident, but I reminded her that I had proof from the shop that was completed 3 years ago and timestamp photos from earlier in the day of both cars being undamaged. Well, after this entire ordeal, my cousin is very upset about how I handled the situation, saying that I embarrassed his friend by confronting her in front of her friends and that I should have offered a payment plan. So anyways, am I the jerk for threatening to sue her in front of people who were strangers to me? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This person literally hit your car, you have proof that they hit your car, and now they're trying to be like, oh, I can't do any of this. Like, what is going on? They are clearly at fault, they know they're at fault, and they're trying to like dodge the situation. So you have every right to be like, listen, either pay for this, give me your insurance, or I'm going to the police. Because what's really happening is this friend really hopes that you don't say anything and you just let this slide. They know for a fact they messed up and that they're in hot water. And sure, they're worried about their rate being hiked up, but it's like, are we being serious right now? You're literally at fault for hitting someone else's car. You have to do the right thing or at least pay for the damages. You can't honestly expect them to be like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. Because I don't know about you, but I don't have just like $2,500 just sitting around waiting to be used for my car. That's a lot of money and I don't care who you are. So no, this person was being difficult, they were being weird, and they're making this process harder than it needs to be. Because I think you know for a fact that they would never follow along with any payment plan you give them. Because the options you gave them are completely reasonable. And if they can't follow them, then honestly, that's their fault and not yours. My entitled mom refuses to allow me to move out of our one-bedroom condo, stating that I'm way too immature to live on my own and that I can't even do simple things like cook for myself. But despite the fact that I commute nearly 4 hours every single day to college, my mom is refusing to let me leave, putting me in a situation that is honestly so demoralizing. Here's what happened. So as the title suggests, I live in a one-bedroom condo with my parents, and I've been renting ever since 2015. For reference, I'm 21 years old and my parents are in their 50s. My dad is unemployed, so my mother is the family's breadwinner. Because of our financial situation, we can't afford a bigger place. So for the past decade, I've been sleeping on a sofa bed in the living room, and I haven't had a room of my own for many years now. I'm currently in my second year of university, and my campus is 2 hours away, meaning that I spend 4 hours commuting daily. And I know, it is exhausting, especially when I have early morning or late afternoon classes. My friends, relatives, and even my parents' friends are perplexed by this. They'll ask questions like, well, why don't you find a place nearby? Doesn't your university offer living accommodations? Why don't you move out? When I was your age, I already moved out. I know that in many Western cultures, students move out at 18 years old and become fully independent, but I'm Filipino, and in our culture, parents usually provide for their children's education and housing until they graduate. After that, then we're expected to be on our own. So in my first year, I suggested that maybe I could get a small, affordable place near my campus, but my mom dismissed that idea. She said that I wasn't ready, and that I was irresponsible, and that I didn't even know how to do basic household chores. So I made a conscious effort to prove her wrong. I started keeping the house clean, doing laundry, ironing my clothing, and cooking all for myself. Granted, she never got to witness most of these herself, since she's always away for work. I'm in my second year now, and I heard from seniors that the upcoming third year is the busiest with big group projects and productions. And for reference, I'm majoring in media production, so we have lots of late night shoots. So I will definitely have to live nearby. I brought this up to my mom once more, including tips my friends shared with me on how to find a cheap and affordable place, but she seemed indifferent to this information. Then last night around midnight, I was on my sofa bed browsing my phone when she suddenly came out of her room. She and my dad always keep their bedroom door open, so she probably saw the light emitting from the living room. She then demanded to know why I was still awake, took my phone and brought it to her room. This morning, after she had already left for work, I got my phone back from my dad and I saw some text messages from her. She then said she was disappointed that I was up late, and because of that, she couldn't trust and allow me to move out for my third year. And at this point, I'm livid. This is so excessive and I'm tired of feeling belittled. I could just say screw cultural norms and just become fully independent, but it's not that easy. My family and I are immigrants. We're from the Philippines and moved to Thailand. I'm not fluent enough to work in a fast food place or retail. Plus, work permits are incredibly difficult to get here. I tried freelancing, but it's so inconsistent. I feel like I'm trapped in some weird purgatory. How can I convince my mom to let me move out? Or is there another way that I can provide for myself? Because right now, I don't see a solution and I really don't know what to do. Okay, obviously there's some like cultural differences here, but honestly, this really seems like an obvious situation. If I was in your shoes and I was like, man, I commute 4 hours total every single day to school, and I still had parents who were like, no, you can't move out, you can't do that, that's not allowed, then I would look to the school, especially knowing what my third year is going to look like, and be like, okay, there's got to be some kind of like student housing or some kind of like grant program to allow you to live on campus. Because commuting 4 hours total every day is insane. That is really not ideal, and I just don't blame you for being frustrated. Now, I can only speak from my personal experience, but if I had a family member who was doing that, especially like my parents, where they're trying to make me go to bed at a certain time at the age of 21, I would then be looking for a new place to live almost immediately. Like, that is so unfair, it's not even funny. Because you are a grown adult, and I understand there's cultural differences, and I totally get that, but overall, I really do think that you should be able to live your life in the way that you see fit, and if living on campus would truly best accommodate your situation, then in my opinion, I think that's exactly what you should do. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An idiotic customer calls in demanding the absolute best from us, despite the fact that he hasn't read our terms and conditions conditions, and literally is so stubborn and rude that he refuses to listen to anything I have to say. Here's what happened. So I work in the call center for a travel company. We do a little bit of everything, but my specific department deals with the flights. We have several different price points and programs depending on the customer's individual needs, but most people just go for the cheapest option, the BOGO deal. Now, being a BOGO arrangement, these are basic flights, just simple, no frills, just get where you're going sort of thing. If you have particular needs, say you only fly a particular airline, or you must have premium seats or someone needs to travel with grandma who's on a different reservation, then all of that goes through one of our other programs that allows for more customization. All of this, by the way, is listed on our website, and there's a link to it on the reservation confirmation. And yet, each and every day, I get calls from guests who didn't read the terms and conditions. For the most part, it's fine. It's just part of the job. But then there's someone who I will refer to as Paul. Paul comes into my line as a blind transfer from another department, and this already has me in a sour mood because the typical courtesy at my company is that the other agent comes at me first and provides a reservation number and a quick brief on what's going on. And this is for two reasons. First, it gives me a minute to anticipate what the call's about and find any relevant information. Second, it prevents the guest from having to repeat themselves, which can make an already irritated caller even worse, which, by the way, is exactly where I found myself. So I think to myself, fantastic, it's only downhill from here. Before I've even said a word, I hear Paul grumbling and muttering to himself about how this is absolutely ridiculous. But even still, I'm a consummate professional, and after working my entire adult life in customer-facing roles, I'm pretty unflappable. So I pretend I did not hear him, I go through my usual security measures, I pull up his booking, and I ask how I can help. Well, what follows is almost 6 unbroken minutes of him listing everything wrong with the BOGO deal terms and conditions, that he would not be able to choose his airline, and that there may be a layover on his way, and that nobody told him it would be like that. Now, for the record, the thing he was afraid of has not happened yet. It is still only a possibility. Since his flights had, at this moment, not been issued, I had no idea what they would be, only what the service standards permitted them to be. Now, because I believe in guests being fully informed of the terms and conditions, I always go through them painstakingly with every single caller that I speak to. If a guest doesn't take the initiative to read them or to call, well, at a certain point, then that's on you. But still, I apologize. And the words have no sooner left my mouth when he snaps and says, "You're not sorry. Don't say that. You're not really sorry. First of all, don't presume to tell me what I am or am not. As it happens, I genuinely am a generally helpful person and will go out of my way to help a guest get what they need for their flights, even if that means not booking an airline with us. I would much rather lose a sale than not have someone's needs being met." So I just ignore his outburst. I let him know that he's within time to be able to switch to one of our other programs that would give him exactly what he needs. And while I was trying to explain that it might be slightly more expensive at a per-person rate, he interrupted me and screamed, "Oh, so you're gonna charge me more? This is ridiculous." I said to him, well, yes. You can have the buy one, get one free flight, or you can have control over what those flights look like. You can't have both. He then shouted out, "But nobody told me that." Never mind that the terms are available for you to peruse at your leisure, but sure. I responded by saying, well, if you don't want to do that, you still have enough time to cancel air with us without any kind of penalty, and you can book flights independently that suits your budget and needs. I'd be happy to help you out with that. But this guy shouted out again. He said, "No, you just don't want to help me." And I thought to myself, well, you got me there. At this point, you're correct. I do not particularly want to help you any longer, as this conversation has now taken almost 20 minutes of my day, and your steadily climbing volume is giving me a migraine. I begin to say, "Paul, I'm sorry," but then he jumps in and says, "Why do you keep saying that? No, you're not." And honestly, I wish I could say that there was some fantastic malicious compliance or witty comeback, but there really just isn't. After something like an hour and a half of this cyclical shouting, all I could do was reiterate the 3 options on the table. He could go to our customization program and pick what he wants, he can cancel our flights and get his own, or he can roll the dice and see what his flights end up being. And you know what? I made sure to thoroughly note on this booking that I told him exactly what our options are, because the last thing I need is this guy trying to come back and pull this once again. Yeah, customers who act like this are honestly so obnoxious. Seriously, just read the rules and know what you're getting into, and then try to complain about it if it really doesn't fit your needs. But for this guy's only defense to be like, "Well, nobody told me that. I didn't know about any of this. What do you mean?" It's like, dude, if you really don't know what's going on, then maybe you should go with somebody else, because this level of malicious incompetence is not going to get you anywhere. And also, I love the fact that you documented everything that you said in this conversation. This guy would 100% throw you under the bus if given the chance, and the fact that you documented everything he said honestly makes it even more sweeter. So yeah, good for you for handling this exactly as you should, because this customer was completely out of their mind. An entitled jerk refuses to pay my friend the wage that he deserves after he literally revamped his entire garden. So we decide to get some revenge revenge by causing problems with his house in a way that he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I go to tennis classes at the local club twice a week, and one of the other alumni on the class is a 50-year-old gardener. He's a cool guy, has been working in the business since he was like 20 years old, and we live in a small town, so a lot of people know him, and he has worked for quite a few in town over the years. He's generally well-liked and friends with mostly everybody. But there is one thing he does wrong about his business. He trusts people a lot, to the point that sometimes he agrees on a price for some work without drafting a contract, then he goes, does the job, and gets paid. It's the old school of thought that handshakes and your word are enough of a contract if you know the guy. Well, right next to the tennis courts there is a house with a big garden. One day, one of us overhit a ball and it ended up in said garden. And this is honestly nothing out of the ordinary. It could happen. After the class, the gardener told us that the owner of said house owes him a lot of money because a couple of years ago, he did a complete remodel and overhaul of the garden, and when he finished, the house owner asked him for a couple more days for payment. Well, those days turned into weeks, and then it turned into the owner not returning the gardener's phone calls, but since no contract was signed, the gardener couldn't go to the police about it, or at least he couldn't legally do anything about it. So he had an argument with the owner once when he ran into him. The owner straight up said he wasn't going to pay, and then he said, "What are you gonna do about it? Go ahead, try to make my garden a mess just like it was. You can't set foot on my property or I'll call the cops on you." Well, the gardener ended up just assuming the money was lost and then moved on with it. A couple of classes after the gardener told us the story, the coach told us that they had to change tennis balls since they were old and barely bounced anymore. And they do this every couple of months or so. And there are about 3 to 4 carts, with anywhere between 80 to 100 tennis balls per cart. The gardener then asked the coach what he was going to do with all the old ones, since there is no recycling program for tennis balls in town or even nearby. The coach said, "Well, I'll probably just toss them in the trash." The gardener then asked coach if he had no problem giving the balls to him after class, and the coach said no, and he was intrigued. After the class was finished, the gardener gathered the carts and began tossing all the balls to the house's garden. The rest of the class, coach included, who also had heard the story that the gardener told, understood the assignment and began helping. Well, we ended up throwing about 300 something balls into the owner's garden. Well, the owner showed up a couple of minutes later to complain, and he was shouting by saying, "Hey, you're doing it on purpose, making a mess of my garden." And he was shouting quite loudly until he saw the gardener. When he saw him, he went mute, he turned around, and then he left. The local police came a couple of minutes later, and the officer knew the gardener and chats with him for a couple of minutes. Then the officer tells us that there's been a complaint about people tossing balls to the house. The coach then smiles and says, "Oh, you know, they're learning, overhits happen." And the officer just smiles and says, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's part of learning." He then turns around and then he leaves. And you know what? It's now become a tradition. Every time the club has to change the tennis balls, coach makes sure the gardener gets all the carts for a ceremonial game of tennis basketball, with the owner's garden being the bucket. Oh man, that's some fantastic revenge in my opinion. First of all, always get it in writing. I don't care what it is, if you have some kind of like financial contract with someone, get it in writing in some way, shape, or form, otherwise it doesn't exist. So that in and of itself is probably a hard lesson the gardener learned, but seriously, it's just absolutely necessary nowadays. There are so many dishonest people and it really sucks. But also, I find this hilarious, because sure, the gardener is not stepping foot on this guy's lawn, but he most definitely is getting back at him in a hilarious way. And I don't know about you, but 300 tennis balls is a lot. That is a lot to pick up and a lot to deal with. So the fact that that's now all over his property, in my opinion, is well-deserved and entirely hilarious. My boyfriend is furious with me after I bought him NBA tickets to an all-star game he's always wanted to go to. And right now I feel very confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so today's Valentine's Day, and I was able to buy NBA all-star game tickets for a great price. And most of these tickets are usually selling for thousands of dollars. Now, my boyfriend is a die-hard NBA fan. I thought it would be nice for us to go this weekend since they haven't had an all-star game in 20 years in the Bay Area. But his reaction and response was so hurtful. He cursed at me saying I do too much, that I'm annoying and that I'm embarrassing him, and that he does not want to go. We did discuss it beforehand and I asked him if he would be interested, and he seemed excited and called it a once-in-a-lifetime experience, especially if his favorite players retire, and that he would love to attend regardless of where we sit. And you know what? I was happy to buy them. We both grew up low income, but now we make good money by working hard and I can afford it. I then let him know that I received the ticket transfer and was excited to share with him that we are going this weekend. But his response was extremely negative and backpedaled by saying that he never wanted to go. Well, I said to him, "Why are you being a jerk?" But he just keeps reiterating that I'm annoying by doing the most and that he had dinner plans that day with his buddy. He's also saying that I came up with his idea on my own and that I decided this for us, that I'm wasting my money, and that I make poor decisions. Obviously, we can't read his mind as to what's behind this behavior, but seriously, what's going on? Does it really seem like I'm emasculating him or being inconsiderate? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, first off, no, you have not done anything wrong. Your boyfriend is an idiot for acting this way. Is he seriously getting upset by being like, wow, I can't believe you bought these tickets I've always really wanted. You're doing way too much, and also I had dinner plans with my friend. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? These tickets apparently sell for what, thousands of dollars? And this guy's acting so insanely entitled and so weird about it. Because I know for a fact that if my significant other did this for me, I would be jumping for joy and I would be so excited to do this. I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm canceling all my plans. We're doing this. This is going to be fantastic. So for this guy to turn around and act like a total jerk, like that is completely uncalled for, and that is something you definitely do not deserve. Am I the jerk for reporting my coworker for cheating in the company walking competition? Because my coworker is now very pissed off at me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, so at our last company meeting, they announced that they would have a step competition. Participation was voluntary, and if the average number of steps is greater than or equal to 5,000 per day, all participants get a Friday half day, and the person with the most steps overall wins an Apple Watch. We would log our steps during work days only for 20 days. Now, I've been in a funk lately and was glad for an excuse to get back into my fitness routine. I love running, and I asked if steps from running could be counted. Now, someone we will call Matt, who volunteered to manage the competition, said that it did. My goal was to have 20,000 steps a day, thinking this would easily put me in the lead, but on day one, this guy, who we will call Dave, posted 23,000 steps. I sent him a message on Teams saying something along the lines of, oh, it's on. And the next day, I put up 24,000 steps, and he answers back with 25,000. Another coworker, who we will call Jenna, also joined in, and the three of us started having daily chats about our workouts. By week 2, it's almost certain that one of us will win, and the whole group is absolutely getting a half day off of work. Then I checked the log, and out of nowhere, someone who we will call Tiffany, who had been posting an average of about 15,000 steps per day, suddenly posts 65,000 steps. Now, for perspective, a marathon I ran resulted in 52,000 steps, so I'm just a bit skeptical. But also, maybe Tiffany ran a casual ultra marathon on a work day. I mean, who knows? So I sent her a Teams message and I said, wow, that's a lot of steps. What's your secret? She then said that she plays volleyball and wanted to count the steps from her games, but she can't safely keep her phone or watch on to keep count. To solve this problem, Matt looked up a chart online that gives a step equivalent for other activities. For example, volleyball gave 89 steps per minute, tennis gave 133, etc. And sure, fair enough, but honestly, the math is not adding up. So I said to her, wow, you must have played for like 8 hours. Her reply was to say, well, I also rode my bike. Now, this is where I call complete BS, so I clarified by saying you counted riding your bike. It turns out she didn't just use the chart for volleyball, she used it to count everything she did and convert it into steps. So we're talking stuff like bike riding, stretching, yoga, washing the dishes, and this is all great, but those are not steps. This really seemed pretty lame to me, and I just added and said, I don't think that's really in the spirit of the competition. Well, immediately I went to Matt and I asked him about this chart, specifically if bike riding counted towards steps. He said that bike riding didn't count, and it was too different and also unfair since not every employee has access to a bike. I then thanked him for clarifying, and I told him that Tiffany may also need some clarification. Well, not even 2 minutes later, I get this message from Tiffany. She says to me, really? You complained about me? That's actually not in the spirit of competition. I lost a pet recently and I've been so depressed. I've been struggling to lose weight and I was so proud of my steps from yesterday. Not everyone can be a marathon runner like you. That is really uncool. Now, I knew I was being a little cheeky going to Matt, but Tiffany's message really took me by surprise. What should I do? Okay, I think someone in the comment section of this post said it best, but the real jerk in this competition is the company who is literally making you compete for a half day off. But in reality here, no, you're definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you did the right thing. Because Tiffany is straight up cheating. She's not participating correctly, and in my opinion, it kind of sounds like she just wants that Apple Watch. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, riding a bike is not the same as getting steps in. That is so stupid and honestly just doesn't make any sense. And I just love the fact that when you did call her out, she suddenly jumps all over you, not because she's offended, but instead because she actually got caught for literally rigging this entire system. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong, because Tiffany doesn't sound like the brightest person in the world, and I don't blame you for saying something in the first place. An entitled elderly Karen who can barely walk wants to put a deposit down on getting a border collie puppy, and despite the fact that we told her that this dog is a high energy dog, this elderly Karen is not taking no for an answer. Here's what happened. Okay, so there's this delusional, narcissistic Karen that lives alone and is so weak to the point of barely being able to get out of the bed. She also also has no money in her bank account. Her previous neglected, bored, miserable dog recently passed away, so she called us the other week and said that she would put a $500 deposit down using a credit card on a $2,000 border collie puppy. Now, anyone familiar with that breed knows how high energy they are. They go crazy without regular exercise and mental stimulation. They act like puppies until they're about 3 to 4 years old. Well, she somehow thinks that having a high energy dog will inspire her to start taking walks when in reality, she can only walk about 20 yards before she's out of breath and has to rest. She also said that she plans on having it trained to be a therapy dog and visit hospitals and nursing homes, which is such a delusional, crazy idea as the training cost can be around $5,000 and it requires constant work with the dog from a high energy individual. I mean, she can barely drive herself places. How is she going to load a dog and walk around a hospital all day? When we asked her these things, every answer was about modifying the behavior of the dog so that it doesn't misbehave when it's bored. And of course, no worries about the mental torture it would be to the dog to have to endure days and weeks of no walks or play activity or even mental stimulation. It would tear her house apart at the very least. It was such a stupid idea. Well, when they found out 2 weeks ago that all of her adult children told her what a horrible idea it was, in typical narcissistic Karen fashion, she has never spoken to us ever again. Yeah, getting a border collie in this situation sounds like a stupid decision. Seriously, this Karen has no idea what she's getting into. Not to mention that everything she was saying was completely out in left field. Like, she will never take that dog to training, she'll never take it to any hospitals, and that dog will never be a therapy dog. Like, that's not gonna happen, and that's some weird justification that she's trying to come up with so that she can get this new dog that she is definitely not equipped to train. But thankfully, the adult children spoke some sense into her and basically said, hey, this is not gonna work. Because in my opinion, her idea was completely ridiculous. An entitled Karen loses her mind after she doesn't get exactly what she wants out of me and my coworkers. But after watching her swear at me and flip me the bird over and over again, I ended up getting the last laugh as I secretly recorded her tirade on my phone and submitted it to my store manager in hopes that she would get banned once and for all. Here's what happened. So at my retail job, I was doing some stocking, but then I got called up to the register to help the cashier with a long line. It was then that I heard this entitled customer, who is the Karen of this story, being rude to my cashier. This entitled Karen was screaming, telling her to double bag her bags. Then she asked the cashier if she could get someone to carry all of her bags to her car. My cashier then asked me if I could do it, and I just straight up said no. This Karen then rudely asked me why, and I explained to her that it wasn't part of my job, and our store does not offer that service. Well, when I said that, she demanded to speak to a manager, and I told her that our store manager was not in at the moment, and that I'm the assistant manager and the manager on duty at the moment. She then told me, oh, so you're not gonna do your job today? But I explained again that it wasn't part of my job because we do not have that kind of service at our store. She then demanded our store manager's name, address, and phone number, but I just straight up told her no, I'm not gonna give out personal information. She then claimed that she didn't say that and told me that she wanted the name, phone number, and address of our store. Well, I just straight up refused to give it to her because at this point she started calling me awful swears. She demanded that I get a piece of paper and a pen and write down her name and phone number and give it to my store manager. Well, instead of doing that, I gave her the pen and paper to write down all this stuff, but she literally shoved it towards me and said it was my job to write it down, not hers. Now, I wanted to cancel her total, but my cashier said no. She wanted her to finish her purchase and get out. This entitled Karen then said that I shouldn't cancel her total because I would never get a customer spending as much money as she is. She then started cussing me out and told me to get out of her face even though I was 8 feet away from her, all while she was giving me the middle finger. She then went on to tell me how I would never amount to anything in life, and I would always be an assistant manager and never a real manager. Her purchase was complete and she tried to convince customers to report me to corporate, but the surrounding customers said that she was the one who acted out of line. When customers confronted her, she denied cussing me out and told them that she never did that, even though I recorded some of the incident on my phone. Her excuse for her behavior was that her husband was in cardiac arrest and she was having a bad day. She tried to pull a Carol Bryant on me and was yelling for the police, claiming that I was bothering her when she realized I was recording her. I then sent the store manager the video and I got a picture of her car and her plate numbers. Some of the customers also gave me their information so that the store manager could call them and they could tell her exactly what they witnessed. Because honestly, this is someone I hope I never have to deal with ever again. Holy crap, this lady's completely out of her mind. There are so many things about this story that are so enraging. First of all, this Karen's attitude is completely out of left field. In today's day and age with technology and like video recording and all this other stuff, you would think that people would be on their best behavior. Like, I can understand you snapping at someone if they actually did something wrong, but it sounds like the cashier and the original poster didn't do anything anything wrong. They were literally just trying to do their job and get stuff done. But here comes this Karen being like, you need to double bag my groceries. By the way, you're gonna carry my stuff to my car. Thank you very much. And then when she doesn't get her way, she starts swearing at people and flicking them off. Like, come on, what is going on right now? That is not gonna make you get your way. If anything, it's gonna make you get banned from the store. And while we're on that, I cannot believe that the lower cashier did not cancel the order. The second you said, hey, we're canceling that order, as the manager on duty, that cashier should have been like, okay, you got it, and then just went ahead and canceled it and said, okay, have a good day. No customer acting like that, and I seriously don't care who you are, should ever be rewarded with a complete purchase. They should be asked to leave and told to have a better attitude the next time they come in. So I know if I was in the original poster shoes, I would have pulled rank and been like, no, you don't get it, we're canceling that order. And then I would have done an override on the cash register and said, okay, let's cancel this garbage. But overall, I think you handled this perfectly. It was so nice to see that the customers had your back and that this Karen was not getting away with any of her garbage. And hopefully your store manager has the right mind about them where they ban this Karen from coming into your store ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My toxic friend stole my younger brother's rare Dragon Ball Z action figure, resulting in me coming back at him even harder by getting revenge in a way that he truly will never forget. Here's what happened. So when I was 16 years old, I had this friend that I hadn't really talked to in a few years because I had strongly suspected him of stealing an action figure from my younger brother. Well, over time, my feelings about this had cooled somewhat by the time I reconnected with him, and I didn't have any friends at the time, so I figured why not? But the thing is, I felt like anything we did was always something that he wanted to do. It was always what he wanted to eat, what he wanted to watch, what he wanted to listen to, always what he wanted to play, despite the so-called rules about the guest always picking whether we're at his house or at mine. Well, I eventually got tired of this. It got to where my prior feelings about him having stole my brother's action figure had started to creep back up, and I decided to do something dastardly. Oh yeah, and as a side note, he later confirmed that he did in fact steal that action figure. So I was over at his house one night, and he put on this really boring military game on his Xbox. I honestly don't remember which one it was, as those aren't my type of game. After a while, he put in Halo, which I did enjoy playing somewhat, but then he mentioned having a few matches and going back to the other game, and I was really dreading the crap out of this. Well, his parents were cooking and hollered to let us know that dinner was done. He went to go get his dinner, and while he was gone, I got the other game out of the case, took a pocket knife, and put a deep cut into the disc from the center on out. And I did so quickly so I wasn't too far behind in getting dinner to avoid suspicion. I then put the disc back in the case and I went to dinner. I came back to his room and we ate, and he got ready to put the game in, and I was a bit nervous, but I already had a BS story ready. He put the game in and turned it on, and the game froze and would not progress past the title screen. He said, wait, what's going on? And I asked him what was wrong, and he started to get a little upset. He then kept turning the system on and off again and never got any further than the title screen. He took the disc out and looked at it and said, I don't understand, it worked before. I then told him to let me look at it, and I then let out a whistle, the one that starts off high but then goes low. I said to him, well, that looks to me like laser burn. He asked me what that was, and I told him that sometimes lasers in game systems and DVD players can put a line in the disc, making them completely unplayable. He then got pissed off and said, oh, come on, I love that game. He then put his head in his hands, and I patted him on the back to show support. We then played Halo the rest of the night, and I reassured him that the same thing won't happen. And obviously it didn't. And you know what? I didn't hang out with him after that. So sure, maybe this is a confession as well. Because you know what? To that guy who stole my brother's action figure, screw you. I mowed yards in the hot, humid summer to get that Dragon Ball Z Future Trunks character, all for my baby brother. And because you stole it from him, that meant that this revenge was absolutely necessary. Okay, I'm not one to celebrate like property damage or anything like that, but this guy kinda deserved it in my opinion. Like the second you steal someone else's property, all bets are off, and it's like, okay, anything goes at this point. You've made the choice to be a complete jerk, so guess what? I'm gonna return the favor. And personally, I've never heard of anything like disc burn before, so that obviously really could have gone one of two ways. Either he believes you like he did in the story, or he calls BS and looks just a little bit deeper. But either way, good for you for getting back at this guy in the way that you did, because from the sounds of it, this guy did not sound like a good person in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not telling my best friend at the time that he was being investigated for fraud at his former job? Because after I finally told him recently, he freaked out on me and is no longer talking to me. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Several years ago, I moved to a new city for work. At my new job, I formed a close friendship with someone who we will call Ryan. And this is somebody who played a crucial role in helping me get accepted into the company. Although Ryan left the company a few months after I started, our friendship remained strong and even deepened over time. Almost every weekend, we would go out together. During the week, we'd catch movies, go to fun places, places, and even take trips with our significant others and other friends. We were inseparable, always supporting each other. But then things took an unexpected turn. Years later, while I was still working at the company where we met, an internal investigation revealed that someone Ryan had hired was involved in a fraud scheme against the company. Because of my position, I became involved in the investigation, which included looking into anyone who had direct ties to the suspect. Since Ryan had been the one to hire this person, despite no longer working there, he was also scrutinized, just like other employees who had connections to the suspect. As part of my role in the investigation, I had to sign a confidentiality agreement that strictly prohibited me from discussing any details of the case. Even though Ryan was my best friend, I chose not to tell him. I was afraid that he might warn the suspect, as he had completely trusted this person. Plus, since he no longer worked there, he didn't have access to the evidence that I had seen that confirmed that this person was guilty. I knew that he would probably believe the suspect was innocent simply because of how much he had trusted them when they worked together. It's also important to note that Ryan was cleared of any wrongdoing. In the end, I didn't see the need to tell him since the investigation continued, and I was still bound by my confidentiality agreement. Years after the investigation ended and my confidentiality agreement expired, I decided to tell Ryan everything, which is something I regret and always will. Well, his reaction was pure anger. He felt betrayed by my silence, and despite my attempts to explain that his investigation was just a routine part of the process and that he had been cleared from the beginning, he chose to cut off all contact with me. Over time, I've tried multiple times to repair our friendship, but Ryan has remained distant, and I miss him deeply, but I have to wonder, was I in the wrong, or did he never truly value our friendship the way that I did? Maybe that's why he didn't want to stay close after this. And through all of this, I've learned that losing a friend can hurt just as much, if not more, than a breakup. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling my best friend that he was being investigated for fraud? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made the right decision. Okay, honestly, this really is completely stupid. I just don't think you should have done this. Sure, your agreement expired, but it's like, wait, how is this gonna benefit Ryan at all? If he really did commit fraud or something like that, then guess what? He's probably not a good person and not someone you want to be friends with. But in my opinion, the fact that you know for a fact he's clear of this and that he didn't do anything wrong should be more of a reason to keep that to yourself and be like, okay, he's a good person and I know I can trust him and continue this friendship. Like in my opinion, the fact that you dug this up and threw it at him and said, oh, by the way, we investigated you for fraud, but that's okay, we didn't find anything. Because if I had a friend who said that to me, I would feel incredibly violated. I would also probably wonder why they didn't tell me and be like, hey, here's a heads up. And it doesn't matter that you're trying to tell them like, listen, I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you now. It's honestly not going to make this situation better, and I think in this case, you kind of ruined your own friendship. So from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like you told him to be a good person. If anything, you told him just to get rid of your guilt, and that just completely ruined your friendship. Like you really should have just kept your mouth shut. So yeah, I kind of think you're the jerk in this scenario because this easily could have been avoided if you just kept your mouth shut and not said a single thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my late aunt's heirloom necklace to her daughter after she basically tried to say she was going to keep it after I gave it to her? Because right now my entire family is turning on me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My aunt passed away a few years ago, and before she died, she gave me a beautiful antique necklace that had been in our family for generations. She told me she wanted me to have it because we were extremely close, and she knew I would treasure it, and I have ever since then. Now her daughter, who we will call Lily, is getting married, and last week she asked if she could borrow the necklace as her something old for the wedding. Now I said yes at first because I thought it was just for the wedding day, but then she casually mentioned that she actually wanted to keep it permanently. I was confused and I asked what she meant, and she said it should have been hers all along since it belonged to her mother. She said it was unfair that I had it instead of her and that she deserved it more because she is her daughter. I told her I thought you just wanted to borrow it. She gave this to me because she wanted me to have it, and I'm not giving it away. Well, she got upset and said my aunt was probably just being polite when she gave it to me, and that if she were still here, she would have obviously wanted her own daughter to have it instead. She told me I was being selfish and I should do the right thing. And now my mom and a few relatives are saying that I should just give it to her because it was her mom's and it would mean a lot to her on her wedding day. But to me, this isn't just some family heirloom. It was a gift meant for me. I understand why she wants it, but my aunt had her reasons for giving it to me. I don't think I should be guilted into handing it over just because Lily suddenly decided that she wants it now. So truly, am I at fault here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I kind of see both sides of this. Like, I understand the original poster's perspective where they're like, wait a second, your aunt gave this to me specifically. If she wanted you to have it, then she would have given it to you. So no, I'm not going to give it away. But on the other hand, I kind of understand where the daughter's coming from as well as the family, where they're like, look, that was my mom's. I really think I deserve it. And honestly, in this situation, that really does make sense to me. But the part for me that kind of tips the scale is that Lily was basically planning on stealing stealing this from you. She said that she wanted this as something old for her wedding, but I guarantee you the second that got around her neck, she was never gonna give that back. Like, you basically would have been giving it to her and she would have been like, oh, you gave it to me as a present, or said some other kind of BS like that to try and get her way. So for that reason alone, I do think that Lily is being the jerk, and I think that if she really did want the necklace, then she should have gone up to you and asked for it like a normal human being, because her scheme to try and steal it and take it away from you in that way, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. My cousin and his buddies all make fun of me because of my weight, saying that if they offer me any of the food they made, then all of it would be gone, all because I'm just a little bit heavier. So I decided to get some revenge by no longer buying groceries for the house and thus cutting out their food source entirely, forcing them to see the error of their ways and start to beg me so that I can buy them some food. Here's what happened. So this happened over 15 years ago when I started college. I stayed at a relative's house that they turned into a small apartment. Most of the residents there were okay, and along was also my cousin and his buddies. We had a joint kitchen and my parents gave me a generous allowance, especially for food to share with everyone. As they were still teens and young adults, they ate a lot, and I at the time was big but didn't eat as much as I didn't move around much. Well, this all started the second month of living there. My cousin told me not to take too much food as they were having to be frugal the last few days before they get their allowance and salary. But here's the problem. I would spend a minimum of $200 for groceries, and it's mostly just food that you can heat up in the microwave or the oven, but my cousin and his buddies would have friends over and help themselves to whatever they wanted. Other roommates didn't contribute, maybe because they just didn't use the kitchen, or they would only leave condiments. They would go through food, and the last week they would have to be really frugal. They would have bread with water, rice with salt. They would even go around places just to get leftovers. I probably contributed over 75% of the food, but didn't eat much as mentioned above, but also I would eat out because my schedule was really busy. Well, they would also insult me based on my size, both subtly and not so subtly. One time, I came home with them having a barbecue, and immediately my cousin dashed off to hide the food, and his buddy said that if they offered me any, it would all be gone. So you know what? I just stopped buying food. Simple, right? Well, instead of them being frugal the last week, they had to be frugal going on the second week of the month. They couldn't hold their get-togethers anymore, and they certainly couldn't get their favorites, especially the Spam, as it was quite expensive in our area. I once came home and they were just idling in the kitchen. They were making a meal out of a couple of eggs and also with some clearly expired vegetables. Well, my cousin cut back on his vices as he realized he can get drunk and starve and vice versa. They were miserable for months until I gave them a saving throw and I bought them some fried chicken. I left after my first semester for reasons, but by then my cousin and his buddies were very eager to kiss my butt just for a little bit of Spam, and it honestly felt so good to get them back. Yeah, this is a great story because honestly, this highlights the reason that you shouldn't bite the hand that feeds you. This guy was literally going out of his way to provide $200 worth of groceries, and these people had the audacity to be like, oh wow, you're so fat. Nobody give him any food, all the food will be gone if he has any. Like seriously, what's wrong with you people? That is so unfair. It's bad enough that this person is providing, what, 75% of the food, but to then be made fun of for your weight? Like that is so uncalled for and just really disgusting. So good for you for getting back at these people because their attitude, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not inviting my sister's fiance and his kids to our wedding simply because I literally don't know them, as my sister and her fiance have only been dating for less than a year? Because right now my parents are upset with me for not making an exception, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I are planning a small wedding. We only invited immediate family and close friends so we can afford to pay for the wedding ourselves. We also said that guests can only bring a +1 if they've been dating for at least a year, because we can't afford to pay for someone they barely know. Well, here's the issue. My sister is 25 and started dating someone we will call John in November. He's 43 years old and he has 2 teenagers. And 3 weeks ago, they announced that they were engaged. I've tried talking to her a few times about how he's too old for her and how she's way too young to be a stepmom to 2 teenagers, but she told me to mind my own business and that she loves him. Well, for our wedding, I only invited my sister. She called and asked why John and his kids weren't invited, and I told her it's because I barely know them and they haven't even been dating for a year. She said John is family now and that his kids will be my niece and nephew, so it's different. But I told her that I can't afford to pay for 3 extra people who are practically strangers to us. Well, now she's mad and says that she won't come either. My parents get where I'm coming from, but they also just want my sister at the wedding. My dad even offered to cover the cost of John and the kids. But the thing is, I just don't want them there. I feel uncomfortable inviting people I don't know to my wedding. So seriously, am I being a stubborn jerk, or is there some kind of logic in what I'm saying? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. Regardless of even if your dad wants to pay for it or not, these are the rules that you set up, up, and if you change it now, then all those other people who already brought only 1 + 1 to the wedding are now gonna be like, wait a second, why do they get special privileges but I don't? And honestly, like that really is how I would feel if I was one of those guests and I saw your sister roll up with all of their family, especially since they've only been dating for like a year. And can we just talk about that for a second? This lady's getting married to a 43-year-old with 2 teenagers. She is 25 years old. That is a crazy age difference, especially with having 2 kids. Like, I'm totally on the original poster side on this one. Sure, it might work out, but in my opinion, that is a little bit weird. But regardless, I don't think you're the jerk in this scenario, and I think you have every right to say that you don't want him there, especially because this is your wedding. My partner of 10 years finally confessed that she had been cheating on me, and now I'm honestly not sure what to do, as we have kids at home and I honestly don't want to break their hearts. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I've very strongly suspected for some time that my wife was regularly meeting up for quality time and emotional connection with a colleague, if you know what I mean. At the same time of this, she pretty much said that she didn't find me attractive and wanted to maintain a co-parenting type of situation. We stopped spending quality time together a year ago after she rejected me multiple times, and I'm quite sure that their relationship ended late last year because since then, she's been very keen to reconcile things with me. She has told me she wants to make it work and she was wrong. Well, more recently, she admitted to having this affair as I pretty much forced it out of her and was very teary-eyed and said that she wants to give our marriage a chance. There was no shouting or arguing, but I was just feeling some very profound sadness. The problem I have is that I don't think I can get over how hurt I feel. I feel like I can't go back to the way things were with her. I also feel like I lost my best friend. I believe she was going through a midlife crisis at the time, which she is probably through now. Her parents are visiting us and they are elderly, so I don't want to walk out as it will be very horrible to have to explain what has happened to them, so I've just remained in the house. And you know what? I have some really dark thoughts when I think about the future. I never wanted my children to grow up in a broken home, and when I leave, I'm worried about the damage it will do to them. For context, in our 10-year marriage, I never cheated despite lots of opportunity to do so. It was never an option for me to cheat on her. I mean, I would not have been able to live with the guilt. So this is why I'm so hurt by what she did to me and her motivation to humiliate me along the way. How do I navigate this situation so we can remain on good terms for the kids' sake and for me to forgive her so that we can have some sort of friendship? It feels like things won't get any better with time because at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, this story is one giant red flag after the other. Listen, I totally understand that you want to try and stay strong and not say anything for the sake of the kids or her elderly parents, but I think you need to look at the facts here. Your wife is only coming back to you because this other guy didn't work out. She actively cheated and she confessed to it. Like, that, in my opinion, is a big red flag and completely unforgivable in my opinion. And I know if I was in your shoes, and I can only speak for myself, this is something I would never let go. Like, seriously, I would never be able to be like, oh yeah, it's fine, I can forgive you. Because in the back of my head, I would always be wondering, okay, well, wait a second, when is she gonna try this crap again? So truly, to the original poster, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, because this situation sounds like a living nightmare. My entitled friend orders the most expensive food on the menu at a diner we were eating at, as he assumed and demanded that I pick up his bill, all because I make a lot more money than he does. But after telling him that I'm not gonna do that, and that I have no obligation to pick up his bill all because of my financial situation, there's now this weird tension in my friend group, and it's leaving me wondering if I made a mistake by not picking up his bill. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male, and recently I went out to dinner with a group of friends. We went to a pretty nice restaurant, and before we ordered, everyone seemed to be on the same page about paying for their own meals. There was no talk of splitting the bill evenly or anyone covering for someone else. One of my friends, who we will call Jake, who's 22 years old, ended up ordering way more than everyone else. He got multiple appetizers, a steak, a couple of cocktails, and even dessert. Meanwhile, I didn't get anything crazy, just a burger, some fries, and a drink. When the bill came, Jake casually said, "Oh, you've got this right." And I was really confused and I asked what he meant, but he just laughed at me and said, "You make more money than me and you've always talked about investments and stuff. I figured you wouldn't mind covering me this time." And for context, I do well financially, but I never act like a walking ATM. I then told him that just because I have money doesn't mean that I'm paying for everyone's meals, especially when he ordered the most expensive stuff at the table. When I said this, he then got all defensive and actually said that he would not have ordered as much as he did if he knew that he had to pay for it himself. But I just shrugged and I told him that sounded like a him problem and not a me problem. Well, he ended up scrambling to pay his part, but he was clearly pissed off. After dinner, some of our mutual friends told me that I could have just covered it just to avoid the awkwardness and that it wasn't that big of a deal since I had the money. But you know what? To me, it was a big deal. I don't want people assuming that I'll pay just because I'm in a better financial position. Now, there's this weird tension in the group, and Jake is now acting incredibly cold towards me. So So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to pick up his bill, especially when he assumed that I would? Because right now I'm incredibly confused. Oh man, this is crazy because there is no way you're the jerk here. This guy seriously assumed, oh, you're rich, you can handle this, right? And it's like, no, dude, that's not how this works. You can't just go up to someone and be like, oh, it's totally fine, you're gonna take care of it. You have all this money and we're friends, so you'll just pay for it. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? That is absolutely entitled and so toxic. Not to mention that he literally ordered the most expensive stuff on the menu. Like, he was clearly trying to take advantage of the original poster and just literally assume like, oh yeah, he's gonna take care of it, all without clearing it with him beforehand and being like, hey, could you pick up the tab or something like that? Like, this is such a weird way to approach anything in life. So no, to the original poster, you are definitely not the jerk. This guy is out of his mind for treating you this way, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing and shut this guy down every single time. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my former roommate's coat after I sent it away to be donated to a women's center? Because right now my former roommate is super pissed off at me, and at this point I don't know what to do. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I have a friend who's 20 years old, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Belle. We had been on the rocks with our friendship for a while, and neither of us bothered to see each other much since she stayed with me after being kicked out of her flat. Well, a couple of days ago, we had a huge argument about the way that I spoke to her. I tried to explain and defend myself, but as always, she victimized herself. Started to say that I never bother with her and she's the only one who ever makes effort. I said I only check in every once in a while since her boyfriend doesn't like her at my house anymore due to him liking being around my brother. And for reference, she had a thing with my brother out of spite when we had an argument. Well, she then got really upset and angry. She was calling me names and saying I was useless, and then she blocked me before I could even reply. Fast forward to today and she texted me again. She said to me, I left my coat at your place and I'd like it back. Now by this point, I gutted my entire bedroom, and me and Belle have very different sizes in weight. So I thought the coat she's referring to was one of my old coats, considering it was in the back of my wardrobe and it had been there for over half a year. So I chucked them into a charity bag with lots of other clothing to take them to a women's aid center. Well, I told her that her coat was gone and that I had donated it. And when I said that, she got really mad and started to demand that I pay her back for the coat. Now I refused to do so, as in my head, leaving something you apparently care about so much at someone else's house for nearly 7 months, despite being told to pick it up, doesn't really translate to someone who cares about their belongings. So at that point, I can honestly assume that no, you no longer want that coat. And also, I had forgotten it was hers, and I told her that it was her own fault for not listening and picking up her stuff. Well, she's now incredibly mad at me. So it begs the question, am I the jerk for throwing that coat out? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. The way she's acting is really weird, and in my opinion, I don't think you have any obligation to her at all. First of all, anyone who's gonna call me ugly names and swear at me and say that I'm useless and then block me before I can have some kind of response, like, no, I'm sorry, any sense of maturity is gonna be thrown out the window. And that coat, in my opinion, is just karma working its magic. Seriously, you don't talk to people like that. You don't treat them like garbage and then expect anything out of them. So no, you're not the jerk for donating that, because it's not your fault that she left it in your closet. And if she had just treated you a little bit better, then all of this could have been sorted out in a reasonable manner. Am I the jerk for not allowing my kids in their grandparents' house after I found out how much of a mess that place was? Because right now I'm incredibly disgusted and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have 2 daughters with my husband. Over the summer, my husband's uncle unexpectedly passed away at 56 years old. Upon his death, it was discovered that he and his 9-year-old son were living in absolute filth. I'm talking the stuff you would see on the TV show Hoarders. If authorities have been called and seen a child living in that house, there is no doubt in my mind that he would have been charged with so many crimes. The 9-year-old now lives with his mother out of state. We had gone several years of not knowing that they were living in these conditions, and this promptly started a discussion between my husband and I about how when our kids are school-aged, we need to speak up right away if we have a feeling that this could be going on with any of their friends or classmates. Well, flash forward to a few weeks ago, and I caught a glimpse of the inside of my in-laws' house. I always knew that my mother-in-law is a saver, to put it nicely, and I had seen her house before and it was always incredibly messy, but this was before she had grandkids. My mother-in-law has been watching my kids part-time since my oldest was born, mostly at our house. However, the last 6 months of my pregnancy with our second, I would bring the oldest to her and be kept out of the loop about what they were doing or where they were going. When I saw the inside of her house, I was absolutely appalled that she would allow my 2 very young children in that environment. They were not there at the time I saw the house, but they they were there just a few days before. Well, I bit my lip and I did my best to hide my face while I was there. But immediately I called my husband on the way home and I told him that neither one of our children were allowed back in that house ever again. And I am admittedly still shaken up with everything that had gone on with his uncle's house. But looking at the condition of my in-laws' house, I will not allow my children to be exposed to that. There are paths around the house. You cannot see any part of the kitchen table or counters. There's no access to the couch, etc. Now, my husband was very understanding and supportive, but my mother-in-law is pouting and saying that it's unfair that I won't let my girls go to grandma's house. Now, I know that going to grandma's house is a special thing for both the grandparents and the grandkids. So am I in the wrong for taking this experience away from them? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so gross. Because here's the thing. If they're really gonna watch your kids, then they need to have an environment that's safe for them to be around. So if they have like trash and it's super gross and unclean, then guess what? That's not a safe environment for a 2-year-old. And I find this so funny that the mother-in-law is trying to be like, wow, you're not letting me have my girls over at grandma's house. But she's literally skipping over the pile of trash to say that statement in and of itself. Because the second we ask, okay, well, why is that the case? You could just look around and be like, oh, that's why, because your house is a pigsty. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is so weird. The fact that she would be upset about this is crazy. And in my opinion, if she wants those kids to come over ever again, then she either needs to clean up her act or else that is literally never going to happen. Am I the jerk for not inviting my friend to a party after he consistently overstays and breaks all social contracts that you could think of? Because right now, after he found out that he wasn't at a party I was hosting, he lost his mind at me, and now he is incredibly pissed off. Here's what happened. Okay, so recently I had some friends over for a party at my house, and most notably, I did invite my friend who we will call John. I didn't lie to him or say that we weren't doing it, or even try to rub it in his face. I just had some friends over and he didn't get the invite. I felt bad, but at the same time, he always stays too late, makes things really uncomfortable for me, and is just a difficult guest to have in my house. Well, I hosted a Super Bowl party and he stayed roughly 2 hours later than everyone else, even though I straight up told him, listen, party's over, dude. He vapes, says horrible swear words, you know, the kinds that have some really awful connotation to them, and he makes jokes about some of my mental health issues. Now, I love him a lot and he's one of my oldest friends, but it's at the point where when he comes to my house, I have anxiety the whole day leading up to it. Anyways, he called me during my party and asked me what I was up to and if I wanted to catch a movie. I said I actually had a couple of people over, so I couldn't tonight, and then he asked me who was there. So I told him, and then he asked me why he wasn't invited and if he could come too. Well, I said something along the lines of, well, not tonight, man. He then just kind of lost his mind at me and sent me a bunch of angry text messages the next day, which in my opinion is a huge overreaction because I tried to be as nice as I could about things. So seriously, would I be the jerk if I just stopped inviting him to stuff? Because right now I honestly am not sure what to do. No, you don't owe this guy anything. First of all, you're not the jerk for not inviting him because in my opinion, you have every right to preserve your peace. This guy's going around making awful jokes, swearing up a storm and saying these terrible things about you, while also staying way too long while everyone else is already going. It's like, seriously, dude, you're like striking out here. You're not a good guest and you honestly are not that good of a friend. And the best evidence of that is him being told no. And unfortunately, that is kind of a good way to see if someone is actually your friend or not. You tell them some bad news or you tell them they can't do something, and then you see how they're gonna react to you. And the way this guy's reacting is completely over the top, like this is so weird. So no, you don't owe this guy anything, and if he's making you that uncomfortable, then I think there's no problem with you saying sorry, but you're not invited. Because I really think that this guy is not a good friend in the slightest. Am I the jerk for stopping my brother from proposing to his girlfriend at my wedding? Because right now I've upset the entire family and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so last weekend I had my wedding, which is a day I had been looking forward to for a long time. We had planned everything carefully and the day was unfolding just as I had hoped. My wife looked radiant, our guests were enjoying themselves, and everything felt perfect. Then, during the speeches, my brother unexpectedly stood up and announced that he was going to propose right then and there. I was completely surprised. I told him in no uncertain terms that the day was meant to celebrate me and my wife and that his proposal attempt was not appropriate for the moment. He argued that this was his only chance, claiming he had been waiting for the perfect moment for a long time. While I understand that he was excited and perhaps had been struggling to find the right time, I felt that my wedding was not the right place for him to have his moment. A wedding is very personal, and I had planned the day to be just about me and my wife. Well, later, some family members suggested that I had ruined his opportunity, and even my mother hinted that I should have just let him go through with it. And this has left me feeling conflicted. I do sympathize with my brother's feelings, but I also believe that certain days should remain focused on their intended extended celebration. After the reception, my wife and I discussed the situation. We both felt that while family matters can be complicated, I needed to protect the sanctity of my wedding day. It's hard to see someone you care about get hurt, but at the same time, I must stand by my decision to keep the day as I planned it. So honestly, am I the jerk for shutting him down and insisting that my wedding remain a celebration solely between my wife and I, even though it upsets him and some of our family members? What should I do? Oh man, this pisses me off so bad, like seriously. If you've watched this channel for a while, then you know that these kind of situations make me want to like rip my hair out. When are people gonna learn that someone else's wedding is not your chance to propose to whoever you want to get married to? Like, this is not your time in the spotlight. Are you kidding me right now? You have no right to stop the reception and propose to your boyfriend or girlfriend, and as a result, completely overshadow the bride and groom who are currently getting married. Like, this really is insane if you think about it. So you know what? Even though everybody's upset with you guys, I think you did the right thing by shutting this down, because this day was supposed to be about you and not your brother in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not going to my sister's university graduation after she literally took over my A-level celebration party and made it all about her? Because right now my parents are still pissed off at me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old female and I passed my A-levels with really good grades, and my parents threw me a small party to celebrate. Now this wasn't anything huge. I only had some close family and a few friends in attendance. I was really happy because I worked my butt off, and it felt like a big moment for me. Well, enter my sister, a 22-year-old female. She was set to graduate from university a few months later, and during my party, she completely took it over. She kept bringing up her degree, talking about her future plans, and even joked that my A-levels were cute compared to what she had to go through. At one point, some of my family members literally started toasting her instead of me, and she just soaked up all the attention. I barely got to enjoy my own celebration because it turned into a preview of her graduation. Now, this isn't the first time she's done something like this. Anytime I accomplish something, she finds a way to make it about herself. When I got into my first choice university, she went on about how her application process was so much harder. When I won an academic award, she made a speech about how she inspired me. It's frustrating because it feels like I can never just have my own moment. So when her graduation came around in August, I decided not to go. I felt like if she couldn't even let me enjoy my small achievement, why should I be expected to show up to hers? Well, my parents were furious and said I was being selfish and petty, and she was upset too, but honestly, I just didn't feel like celebrating someone who constantly downplays my own achievements. Now, months later, my parents still bring it up, saying I ruined a big moment for her. My sister has mostly let it go, but my parents keep trying to guilt trip me about it. Now, at the time, I feel like I was justified, but now I'm wondering if I was being too harsh. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you were being too harsh, because it's obvious your parents are playing favorites. Anyone in their right mind who's having a celebration for one kid would not then encourage a toast for the other. Or better yet, would be like, okay, that's cool, older sister, but we're talking about your younger sister today. And in my opinion, they're only upset that you didn't show up to this other sister's graduation because they obviously see her as the favorite of the family. And it's like, I'm sorry, but that's not okay. Because as far as I'm concerned, it really seems like they encourage this kind of behavior from your older sister, where she can basically get away with saying anything she wants as long as she still has like a good reputation in the family. So no, you're not the jerk here, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Would I be the jerk if I didn't pay my dad back $300 after he spent the tens of thousands of dollars saved for me and my college fund on another woman and another family? Because right now I'm still pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my dad cheated on my mom, had another family, and spent the college fund my mom had been saving for me since birth on the other woman. In fact, that's actually how my mom figured out he was cheating when I was around 15 years old. He was diagnosed as a narcissist and never talked about it with me and never directly apologized. We sort of act like it just never happened, and he's not emotionally open. But also, he wants to be close with me, but I have a wall up. Anyways, last year when I was unemployed, he loaned me $300. Then the other day, he called me saying that his wife told him it was actually $800. I then sent him the receipt showing that it was $300. But honestly, I'm just sitting here like, well, it's $300. You're my dad, and you technically owe me tens of thousands of dollars. So with all that in mind, would I be the jerk if I just didn't pay him back? He says that a year is too long and that I need to learn about responsibility. What should I do? Wow, your dad's a piece of garbage. First of all, I don't think that's anybody you should ever get money from, because clearly he doesn't care about you in the slightest. I mean, just look at the way he's acting. He literally tried to be like, oh, it's $800, not $300. And it's like, dude, I've got a receipt. Are you kidding me right now? Not to mention the fact that this is coming from the other woman, you know, the one that got all the money that was supposed to go to you for college? Like, this guy really sucks and I'm so sorry you're dealing with him. So in my opinion, I don't think you would be the jerk if you didn't pay him back. This guy neglected you and did not care about your future in the slightest. And that $300 is not even a drop in the bucket, especially compared to what this guy has literally put you and your family through. My stepfather sold off my dead grandmother's jade pendant necklace that I bought for her quite literally 24 hours after she passed away. So I decided to get some revenge in a way that he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 23-year-old female, and I lost my grandma due to COVID complications in January of 2022. I had bought my grandma a jade necklace pendant and bought myself a rose quartz pendant. Her necklace cost about $200, and this was because it was wrapped in real gold and it was a huge piece of jade. Now, it's important to know that my mother's husband, namely my stepdad, treated my grandmother and I horribly. He mistreated me for years and treated my grandma like his personal servant. My grandma raised all of my siblings and myself, and my youngest half-brother on my mom's side is my stepdad's son. Well, not even 24 hours after her death, my narcissistic mother told me that she would go through her room at the end of the week. And mind you, this is not even 24 hours later. So her room was cleaned, and I noticed a fat wad of cash in my stepfather's hand. Well, I asked my stepfather if I could have my grandma's jade pendant back, as it was very important to me because it was hers and she wore it all the time. But my stepdad just told me that he just sold it because apparently everything in her room was now his. And when I heard this, I was infuriated. I never felt that kind of rage before. So the following day, I plotted my revenge. While my mother and stepfather were gone, I got busy. For some context, my mother and her husband depended on me a lot while living with them. So I took his brand new laptop, you know, the one that he bought selling my dead grandma's jade pendant, and filled up the bathtub with water. I dropped it in the water and I left it there for a good 10 minutes. I then took his laptop charger and cut small holes that he couldn't see inside of it. I also made sure to dry the laptop off really well and put everything back where it belonged. But you know what? I went even further. I took everything I bought in that kitchen and I donated it to the people who really needed it. From the air fryer to the microwave to the plates, the bowls, and the cups, even the pantry cabinet that I bought, guess what? It all got donated. But then I took it up a notch. I took all the toiletries I bought with my money out of the bathroom and I locked them all in a lockbox. So sure, if you're gonna sell my dead grandma's pendant, then guess what? No laptop for you. In fact, no more of anything that I bought. And the icing on the cake is that I had proof of purchase of my dead grandmother's pendant. So I decided to make his workplace aware that he is a thief. And while I did move out in May of 2022, I've been no contact with the both of them for a very long time. And honestly, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Wow, your stepfather's a monster. Not to mention your mom, who's also right up there in that monster category. You mean to tell me that your grandmother passed away, what, 24 hours ago? And then suddenly your stepdad is rifling through her stuff as if he has any ownership over any of that? Like, are you being for real right now? That is so crazy to me. Because obviously that jade necklace meant so much to you. It was a connection to a grandmother who clearly raised you and your siblings. Not your mom, not your stepdad, your grandmother. She's the one that stepped up. And this is all in spite of your stepfather treating her and you like garbage. So for him to go through all of her stuff and be like, oh, this is all mine now. By the way, I sold it. See you later. Like, at that point, I don't blame you for the actions that you took. Because I know if I was in that situation, I'm just not sure if I would be as rational and responsible as one might expect. I'm pretty sure I would do something similar to the original poster and be like, no, I don't feel bad about this and you deserve it. Especially with the laptop. Like, that guy is heartless. He literally sold it off and spent all that money on a laptop. Like, the first thought in my head anytime someone passes away is finding those family heirlooms that help you remind them of that person who's gone. But this guy just wants to make a quick buck and says, oh yeah, this is mine. I'm gonna spend this however I want. So truly, good for you for getting back at those people and for choosing to go no contact. Because from the sounds of it, these are not the relatives that you would ever want to keep in contact with. My toxic manager is constantly picking on me specifically, as he micromanages me in a way that honestly is so debilitating and so demoralizing. But after finally realizing that he's only doing this to me, I'm honestly at my breaking point because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a host, and the previous place that I worked did not have takeout, or the host didn't do takeout. It was high volume, so all I did was seating, reservations, and phone calls. My current place basically has the servers rotate whoever does takeout, and it's basically one of those things where if you see it while in the ticket and your section isn't full, then go ahead and take care of it. If a customer walks in for their order and it's still not packed, the host tells the server and they finish up that ticket. Other than weekend nights, we are hardly slammed and we have enough servers, so it still works out. Well, suddenly the manager sends me a long message saying that he wants me to step up on takeout. I always just take all the phone calls and I put in the order, but he wants me to pack everything. And he even told the servers not to touch packing takeout. But now, suddenly there's 5 tickets unpacked and left alone while I scramble to figure it out. The servers are told to seat people and answer the phone for me as I'm stuck in the back packing takeout. It's like, what is going on right now? The other manager screams at me that I'm doing it wrong, even if I'm doing it right. He says things are missing when they're not. He says hot and cold items should be separated, but then says hot should be on top, but cold should be on the bottom, while also complaining about some items being double bagged and saying, oh, this one should and this one shouldn't. And it's like, what are you doing? He's even waved a bag in front of my face in front of the other manager and staff, and this is because it was a 20 ounce and not a 16 ounce. He would micromanage that I put 2 sauce packets in and not 3, or only 2 utensils and not 4. All dishes should be upright and all takeout with a menu. Now, despite this, I've packed it exactly as he says, like it's a science. But opening up takeout I've packed and stapled to examine for mistakes is absolutely crazy. When I started taking out bags and putting utensils in them, making them ready for orders and to pack, he puts them away and only wants me to start opening a bag when the kitchen finishes everything in that specific order. And it's just so crazy to me. And it would be one thing if it was actually a complex system, but we only have 3 types of bags, 3 types of containers, and 3 types of boxes. So packing our cuisine is essentially a pizza place level easy in terms of packing. Since then, I've actually passed over takeout for months before I know for a fact this special training was only happening to me, and the 2 new servers never got any of it. But every server has forgotten sauces, gotten orders wrong, and made sauce packets rain into these bags. Even the manager himself forgets a drink or a straw. And guess what? They just laugh about these mistakes, and so does he. I'm the only one that got this special training. Last weekend, he told some of the servers to help with a bunch of orders, and some of them forgot sauces, mixed up drinks, and most forgot menus and packed dishes with the bag not upright. And yet, despite all of this, no one was yelled at. The manager even laughed with a server about a drink mix-up. And it's like, what are you talking about? What bothers me most is I don't even touch any of my takeout tips, so I have to deal with all of this while they keep my tips. I also know for a fact that other people in my job before me would just text all day at the stand. One time, he was pissed off that I made a sale by charging people $2 for 2 styrofoam cups of water, saying that you don't need to charge for water. And it's like, okay, so you're anal about counting napkins, but not excited about a sale? And sure, I know it doesn't matter, but still, I'm like, why? Why me? After the bag waving, I ended up tearing up to the chef, who definitely let the managers know, and my hours got cut from 5 days to 2 days. And I don't even want to go to my shifts tomorrow. I don't even know if it's worth talking to the manager that's actually nice to me. And the funny part is that I've had no mix-up or complaints on my takeout orders the past 2 weeks. But honestly, it all just doesn't matter because I don't think I'll ever get respected by these people. So seriously, is it worth talking to the manager that's actually nice to me to see if there's something that can be done? Because right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that you're sticking with it and still working there. Seriously, these people suck. They're obviously calling you out on purpose, and for some reason, they're very clearly treating you differently. And no, this is not your fault. Nothing, and I mean nothing that you're doing right now would ever justify this kind of treatment. Like, this guy is so crazy about you figuring out your takeout orders, and yet even still, the servers can mess up and they don't get anything. And my God, trust me when I say this, I've been there. I've been with awful managers who treat me like garbage and yet seem to laugh and joke with everybody else. And you're just kind of left sitting there like, wait, what did I do? I didn't do anything. Because from the sounds of it, you're a good worker. You're trying to find the most optimal way to get things done, and this guy's literally just crapping on you. So sure, you could talk to your manager, but in my opinion, I think you absolutely should find another job, because this place doesn't sound like it's gonna get better anytime soon. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Nobody in my life seems to like my boyfriend, and now I'm second guessing our entire relationship because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for just a little bit over a year. We met at my workplace and moved in together last July. Because of a financial situation, I had to move in with him even though I didn't quite feel ready. Now, things were good when we first met. I mean, the guy is a little strange, but I knew that from the start and I appreciated it. We had the same sense of humor and got along, and that's all that really mattered to me. I like having someone who's different than me to converse with. Now, to preface this, when my boyfriend is around me, he's either very shut in playing games or excited to show me little Instagram memes and affection. However, when he began to meet my friends and family, he wouldn't put in any effort. He would sit in the corner awkwardly silent, and it would pique pique everybody's interest. They either thought that we were fighting or that he was upset. My friends, family, and I played it off at first, and we thought, hey, maybe he's just super introverted. I never believed in love at first sight. So even though we started in a good place, and I wasn't sure if I want to marry him, I thought that we would learn, grow together, and get better. Well, instead, our relationship has gone very downhill. Our differences have started to become unbearable to me. He is constantly quiet and reserved, and it comes off like he's pissed off 24/7. Although he always denies being upset, it's so hard to relate and talk to him when I'm very extroverted and he's being extremely quiet and introverted. Lately, I've had multiple of my friends express that they think he doesn't like them, and this is all because of the way he acts. And apparently, it seems that they don't want to be around him either. My family has asked me multiple times, "Are you sure about this one?" Which is disheartening to me because I value their opinions a lot. Yesterday was my birthday dinner, and my best friend brought a guy that she is talking to. Well, today she confided in me that her guy was worried that my boyfriend was racist simply because of the way he was acting and not trying to converse. The guy said he tried hard to talk to my boyfriend, but he just literally wouldn't engage. Now this really upset me because my boyfriend is definitely not like that, but always has this awful attitude. Everyone around my life that cares for me is expressing that they aren't sure about him for me because we are so different. And usually I would not care, but it's starting to change my attitude towards him. I'm so scared to tell him that I don't have feelings anymore and want to separate because having differences doesn't feel like a valid reason to break up. Well, last month I tried to tell him that I want to live separately when our lease ends because living alone is something I value, and I was practically forced to move in with him due to finances. Well, when I said that, he cried and said he wouldn't have anywhere to go if I moved out, so I just settled it by having different bedrooms in the same house when we move out. Now, I know where this story ends and the obvious solution is to break up, but I don't know how to navigate it and I don't want to hurt him. I know I have to, but I have a huge problem with tense situations like these. I'm so avoidant to hurt him that I contemplated moving back home as an excuse to break up with him, but I realized that would just ruin everything that I have going for me right now. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, it doesn't sound like this guy's putting any effort into your relationship. Sure, he's excited to be around you, but around family, I mean, my God, this guy's not even trying. And also, I think you need to realize that no matter how you go about this situation, you will hurt him, whether you break up with him softly or just by ripping the band-aid off. Like, this guy's probably gonna cry and be really upset, but at the end of the day, you said it. You said, hey, I might not want to be with this guy anymore, and in my opinion, if you really feel that way, then that's a big red flag that this probably is not right for you. So yeah, the situation sucks, but I think you do need to do what's best for you, because from the sounds of it, this does not sound ideal, and I don't blame you for having second thoughts. My grandmother is constantly trying to control my life, and with my birthday trip coming up around the corner, I'm worried that she might try to do it again, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I need some help on how to handle my grandmother, who I suspect is trying to control my life, because I'm honestly getting so fed up with her behavior, and so is my family. Me, my parents, and one of my brothers have a hearing impairment and severe disabilities, but even still, we are very independent. I left the nest when I was just 19 years old, and I live alone in my own flat. And in these 6 years, my confidence and independence increased with the help of support workers. And I even started recently traveling to different places around the United Kingdom. My grandma had been part of my life since I was born, and I always thought of her as a mother figure, so my childhood always seemed normal. But when I was 17 years old, I was forced to stay with her for a while. Everything seemed fine at the beginning, but then I noticed some red flags while I was staying there. For example, she tells me to change into something else just because she didn't like it, or to wait at the bus station to pick me up, even though I didn't ask her to, and even calls me when I'm running late home. Well, I couldn't take it anymore, and I ran away and went back to my parents after I was found. The whole thing traumatized me so much. I suffered from severe anxiety, had some really dark thoughts, and refused to see her or contact her for a year. Recently, she started controlling and withholding info from the family too. For example, when Dad told her about an extension planned for the family house after the paperwork was completed and signed, she had the audacity to phone the council for further information, but she was denied this due to confidentiality reasons, and instead she got scolded. Another example is the pregnancy of my step-cousin, and she didn't tell us about it until after the baby was born. Also, she didn't tell my dad about my great-uncle's death until after the funeral. And on top of that, my aunt's marriage is something she didn't tell my dad about until just a week before the wedding. She also doesn't like my mom, and would often leave her out of cards and presents, which she finds very upsetting. She treats her other 3 children and my cousins differently from us, and allows them to live their own lives. However, she hasn't seen one of them for 3 years, and is still moaning about it, even though he does see his granddad a lot. As for me, she once criticized me about about the condition of my flat, tried to steer me away from my granddad's funeral on my mom's side because I had an exam on that day, and showed concerns about my well-being at university, despite being happy about it when I first told her about it. I am planning a trip to Scotland, and I will be staying there for 3 weeks. Because of her nature and her pride high enough to not apologize even once, as well as just make excuses and criticize us, I originally planned to not tell her, but she seemed to have a tradition where she FaceTimes me to sing happy birthday every year, and I find it really annoying now, and I've told her many times to stop. And because the trip is on my birthday, she will eventually know about this. I don't want her to make me upset or try to ruin my plans in any way, so I want to find a way to say to her that she can't control my life, and if she can't accept that I'm an adult now, then I can't trust her with my life anymore. I now call her or see her less frequently because I'm getting really fed up now, and so does my dad. I already have mental health issues, and this would just make me more upset. So right now I'm super frustrated, and I really just don't want to deal with her any longer. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. This does sound super obnoxious, because what you're describing really does sound super controlling. But I think the strategy that you're going with, where you're like kind of slowly fading out of like any kind of communication, especially on a more detailed manner, like that in my opinion might be the best change that you need. Sometimes an information diet really will go a long way in showing people that, hey, I don't like you nearly as much as you think I do. So hopefully this all works out, and hopefully your birthday isn't ruined by your grandma, because considering the way she's treated you in the past, I think that you deserve to celebrate that day without her being present to try and take away from it. Am I the jerk for trying to have a conversation with my friend about whether or not they found a ride for us to go to and from the airport? Because right now I'm being called disrespectful, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so about 3 weeks ago, we booked a vacation, and my friend said that their mother will take us to and from the airport, so we shouldn't bother paying to park the car at the airport, as they also didn't want to spend the money doing that. Because of this, I told other people in our party to make their own travel arrangements, and they have done so without any kind of issue. A week passes by, and I asked my friend if this is all sorted out for sure, with our way to and from the airport being figured out. Well, they then came back to me saying that they hadn't even asked yet, but that they will do that soon. Because of this, I made arrangements for a family member to take us to the airport, and I left my friend to figure out a way back. Now, because we're tight on time, I've said that my friend needs to meet me at my house, and that we'll travel from there. And this is fine, but now I'm being told that the ride they've planned back from the airport stops once we arrive at their house. I didn't drive, and now 6 days out from the vacation, I'm having to find more travel arrangements back from their home. And I've said that this is silly and unfair, as they originally said rides were sorted and didn't want to pay for parking. But apparently, because I've asked if we could head to the airport from my house, it's disrespectful of me to assume that I'd have a ride home. And I've paid for the ride to the airport as my family member asked for fuel. Their ride back doesn't want fuel, but now I'll likely have to pay anyone else to give me a ride home. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? I don't feel like I am, but perhaps maybe I'm looking at this weirdly. I mean, they did say that we'd have rides sorted out, but we never had any. So it's honestly been such a mess ever since then. What should I do? Oh my gosh, I hate situations like this because seriously, you're not asking a lot from this friend. Like, the least they can do is at least follow through with what they were saying they were going to do. So if they're the one that initiated and said, oh, don't worry guys, I'll take care of the ride situation, and then slowly but surely that turns out to be a complete lie, then my God, don't ever use them for anything ever again. They're clearly not reliable, and they absolutely will leave you high and dry. So no, you're not the jerk, and you definitely were not being disrespectful, because the way this friend acted, in my opinion, was completely out of line. My entitled extended family is furious with me and my partner after we decided to have no children at our wedding, as they are all now freaking out on us and making this into a bigger deal than it definitely needs to be. And at this point, I'm wondering if we are the jerk, or if we're somehow justified for doing things the way that we want. Here's what happened. Okay, so we set a no children rule for our wedding. We're having a small wedding with maybe 100 close friends and family, and it's one where you wear a black tie, there will be an open bar, and there's gonna be a big band. We've been clear on this rule from the beginning of our wedding planning, and we communicated this a year prior to our wedding when we sent out the save the dates. For context, we're in our mid-20s, and none of our close friends are married or even thinking about children. Our family friends are all 60 plus years old too, so their children are grown up. Since then, we've had to flex our rule to include our 4-year-old niece and our 2-year-old nephew as a flower girl and page boy, but they will be accompanied by their nanny, who will take them home right afterwards. Before sending out the official invites, we thought that it would be courteous to let other family members know that we are sticking to our no children rule. However, this has caused major backlash. A cousin claims that they see the groom as a brother and is sending nasty long messages about how she's upset, isn't sleeping, can't believe we don't see her child in the same same way we see our niece and nephew refusing to attend our wedding, trying to say, oh, I'll bring her to the ceremony only and then I'll leave. But regardless of what's happening, we've held our stance on no means no. On top of this, the aunt is also sending long messages about how the entire side of the family is upset. The child in question isn't just another child, but should be considered part of our immediate family, and that the dead uncle would be so disappointed with our decision. Before my fiance and I were engaged, this side of the family hated my fiance as she is from a different religion. They gave her years of awful treatment and tried to break us up. And you know what? They haven't apologized, and my fiance has moved on from the past. We didn't think a no-child rule would be so controversial, but now we're getting nasty stuff from this side of the family about the no-child rule. So seriously, are we the jerks for enforcing this? Because right now we don't know what to do. No, you didn't do anything wrong. These people are so weird. You literally told them a year ago that you don't want kids at your wedding. How is that hard to understand? Like seriously, it would not take that much to find a babysitter and just have the kids babysat for this one ceremony. These people are also acting like you did this on purpose just in spite of them, when in reality, this is just how you want your wedding done. And I think you have every right to treat your wedding any way that you want. So yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. These people suck. And the fact that they're guilt tripping you, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. My entitled mom is pressuring me to introduce my boyfriend to her, despite the fact that I really don't want to do that. Because after a lifetime of having her judge literally everybody in my life, from friends to partners, I'm now extremely hesitant to share this partner with her, as I don't want her to criticize them in the way that she's done to others in the past. Here's what happened. Firstly, I would just like to say that I genuinely do love my mom. She supported me in almost everything, was there for me during my recent hard times, so I do not hate her, nor do I have any reason to. Now, for a bit of background, I'm 22 years old and I'm about to turn 23, but ever since I was little, I was very shamed for everything by my family, namely my looks, what I enjoyed to eat, when I would get sweat stains on my shirt, my private journal that they found, my toys, etc. And this is including my mom, and I feel like I grew up to be extremely private and secretive, avoiding any chance to get shamed again at all cost, by rarely, if ever, sharing details about my personal life and what I like. My mom has a habit of judging people extremely harsh and always finding a flaw in somebody. We could be walking on the street and a gorgeous girl could be passing us by, and if I mentioned to her, wow, she's pretty, she would say something like, yeah, I don't know, her thighs are kind of big, and her hair is so thin, and her dress is ugly. The worst part is that she does it to my friends as well. I'll show her a group picture, and she'll start judging every single thing about everybody in that picture. She will make mean remarks to the face of my closest friends that she had met plenty of times, such as mentioning so many times how wrong a certain makeup looks on my friend's face. I still live with her, even though my biggest wish since I was a teenager has been to move out, but I simply can't afford that right now because I am a student. Because of this, I had always hidden every boy I've dated from my parents, especially from my mom. When she did find out about somebody, she wouldn't hesitate to completely destroy him as much as she could to my face. He could be the most gorgeous guy, and she would always overly point out every small thing that she finds as a flaw. When she won't point out his looks, she'll find the smallest detail about their personality, over-exaggerate it, and make it seem like they're such a loser. Now, with that in mind, I have been dating my current boyfriend for a year and a half now. She found out about this when we were 2 months into our relationship, and ever since then, she mentions how he's impolite and rude for not coming to meet her. It's not like he's a complete stranger to her, as my brother and him were friends for many years, and they often hang out in the same group of friends. After a couple of months, while still constantly pressuring me, I mentioned to her that I don't view meeting the parents as necessary right now, that I am old enough to decide my life with someone for myself, and if I were to get to the point of being engaged with somebody, then yes, surely she would meet them. Well, when I said this, she got very angry and said that this is not normal, that she will always need to meet them way before it gets to that point, that she finds it rude of me to hide them from her. Now, I did not elaborate on why I'm doing it, but she did not stop complaining about not having met him. But I simply do not want to hear her harsh, rude, and aggressive judging about my partner, which is the exact same thing she did with every partner or friend from the past. I don't want to give her the opportunity to mock anything about him to his face. So seriously, am I in the wrong here? Is it really that wrong to wait for things to be serious like an engagement until someone gets to meet my parents? Because right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, based on what you described, I don't blame you for doing things the way that you're doing it right now. Your mom sounds obnoxious, and it sounds like she really wants to insult everything about your life. Like she really just doesn't want you to have anybody in your life. So seriously, I don't blame you for a second for being like, wait, you are not getting involved in this, because your mom sounds incredibly judgmental in a way that is completely inappropriate. My entitled mother loses her mind after I raise the rent on my house by $3, as she says she's gonna take take me to court, and then they will give my house over to her. And right now I'm honestly blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I bought a small starter home during the housing market crash completely by myself. I lived there for the better part of a decade before buying a larger home with my now husband. My parents really wanted to live there because it was small and easy to maintain. They have foreclosed in the past, so there's no way they would be capable of someone giving them a mortgage. Also, my dad is retired and my mom doesn't work. Now, they wanted to rent from me for a discounted rent they paid off the mortgage for with an over six-figure inheritance my parents got. So a lease was written explaining that it was a prepayment of rent and their rent would be only the taxes and insurance, and they would pay $350 a month. And basically, that price would only go up when taxes or insurance was going up as well. We signed the lease with all the other typical stuff in it and had it notarized, and that's how it's been for a while now. So just to be clear, I'm not making a dime off this house. Fast forward, and I recently told them the rent would go up by $3, and yes, $3, all because of a slight increase in the insurance. And when my mother heard this, she lost her mind, claiming that I'm a money-hungry jerk, and that she was going to rip out everything that she did for this house, claiming that I owe her and that I can't evict her because it's her house. She's not responsible for the insurance. Insurance hasn't been raised in over a decade, and I'm trying to make her pay my personal homeowner's insurance. She then said that a court will show me that and that they will give her my house. Now, we have a notarized lease. They are listed as tenants, and I'm the only one on the deed. My father even demanded the bill so he could see if I'm ripping them off. Also, this house is a commutable distance from Manhattan, so a studio apartment around here is like $1,500. This is a house with a large yard for their dog. I mean, I can easily get $2,000 for this house, even before they moved in. I sent them copies of the taxes and insurance showing only their address. And for the record, I'm charging them discounted taxes. I told them to add and divide by 12 and told my mother to talk to a lawyer so they can slap them straight. I guess my father agreed with me because she's now divorcing my father. So right now, everything's a mess and I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they would like to share. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to thank everybody for all their comments. I was mainly just venting because I was very upset after the exchange, and I have been dealing with some health issues. So it's just a range of emotions right now. I keep getting a lot of the same questions. So to clarify a few things, they have lived there for 4 years now. My mom has always been entitled and an alcoholic, and I mainly did this for my father so he can get a chance to retire after having heart surgery when he worked a physically demanding job for over 36 years. They asked to rent the house and pay it off as a prepayment of mortgage, so the only big bill monthly was their health insurance. I had a few others interested in renting my house, so I did not ask them for this. They also did not co-sign on the mortgage or help with the down payment. Their name is not on my house or the deed. There have been rent increases in the past due to the taxes and insurance going up, and there was never any issue before this. Now, my husband's dad unfortunately passed away without getting to enjoy his retirement, and his inheritance helped pay for the down payment on our new house. Now, when it comes to my mom, she has a history of putting crap on me, and I guess $3 is the line in the sand. I started paying $200 a week after I graduated high school until I moved out at 20 years old. I also worked about 65 hours a week on top of school just to do this. And yeah, shockingly enough, they foreclosed when I moved out. I then stupidly put her on my phone plan and basically paid her phone for 2 years until the contract ended because she only paid me for 3 months out of those 2 years. She promised money for my wedding and never delivered. They didn't pay for college, they never stepped up for clothing or school expenses when I was 16, all because apparently I had a job. And I know this is all a red flag parade, but I trusted my dad more than her, I guess. And I really thought I was doing a good thing. I also want to keep this house because I love it, and I want to move back one day, or even allow my children to live there when they go to college. But either way, this is incredibly messy, and hopefully this all works out in the end. Yeah, your mom sounds super toxic, and I really can see why your dad's getting a divorce. She freaked out over a $3 difference, and she's basically living there scot-free. Like seriously, this is close to Manhattan, and the original poster's not wrong. They could have easily been making thousands of dollars off of this house every month just by renting it to somebody else besides the parents. So yes, your mom is super entitled, and hopefully this works out sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend has been guilt-tripping me and manipulating me for years, making me her doormat in ways that honestly made me super uncomfortable. But now, as a result, I've decided to cut her off, even though that process has honestly been a living nightmare. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 25-year-old female and I'm child-free, so maybe there's some aspect of parenthood that I'm just completely missing here. My friend, who we will call Stacy, had her first baby about 9 months ago, who we will call Haley. Stacy and I had had some tension brewing in our friendship since she was pregnant. In the past, my time and energy had been very much available to Stacy. At times, I felt that she took advantage of my empathy and my willingness to bend over backwards for her. She lived about an hour away and was always in some form of drama or crisis. So I drove up to be with her nearly every single weekend. And the times when I told her that I couldn't for one reason or another, she would beg and usually guilt trip me with things like, "Oh, I'm just in such a dark place right now. I don't know what I'll do if I'm alone. I really need this right now." She also did a lot of passive-aggressive shutting down from conversation when she didn't get what she wanted, leading me to always give in and put my own needs on the side. And you know what? This went on for years. I eventually grew tired of this pattern and I started therapy, where I learned to set healthy boundaries, speak up, and prioritize myself when it was important. These changes led to me basically cutting the weekends that I spent with her in half. I was in the process of buying a house, starting a new job and a master's program, on top of some other family issues. I knew that she saw the change in our friendship and wasn't happy about it, but I thought that with time she would understand and adjust. But the thing is, she never did, and insinuated that I changed because I didn't support her pregnancy, or because my partner was manipulating me into not spending time with her. I explained to her many times that this wasn't the case, and that I'm doing all that I can to be there for her. Things came to a head when I had a health scare. I told her about it, and the next day she tried to call me. I was on the phone with someone else and I simply couldn't answer, but I texted her immediately after to let her know and make sure that everything was okay. Well, she once again got super upset because I didn't answer right away, and at this point, I had had it. On the very rare occasion that I asked for support from her, she had to make it all about herself. I didn't usually call her out, but this time I did. I told her I didn't understand why she had an attitude. She said, "Thanks for making me cry," and then didn't respond to me for over a month. Then, when she finally did, she didn't even ask about my health. She didn't apologize or even bother explaining. She instead accused me of using her daughter as a pawn by not acknowledging her. She said that Haley didn't deserve absolutely no effort just because her and I were in a fight, and that it was so messed up that I would add Haley into the equation. And at this point, I'm so confused. Haley had nothing to do with the fight, and Stacy was the one who had ignored me for over a month. And it's like, what was I supposed to do in this scenario? I can't text a 9-month-old or just show up at their house. I'm genuinely so lost, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they would like to share. Here's what they had to say. "Okay, for a bit of further context, Stacy and I have been friends for over a decade, and I have long speculated that Stacy's behavior stems from her past traumas and mental health. This is a huge reason I could never bring myself to abandon her or criticize the way she copes with life, albeit unhealthy. Although I can empathize with her experience and care about her deeply, everybody who commented really helped me see that with no end in sight, it's not a sustainable friendship for me to continue. So I decided to be brutally honest with Stacy, and of course, things ended in flames. I explained that her using Haley to guilt trip me was manipulative and crossed the line, and that it is reflective of her behavior towards me throughout our friendship. I have done my best to be a good friend, but find it impossible to meet the expectations that she has for me that she doesn't seem to apply to herself. I initially said I needed some distance from her, but her response was even worse than I imagined possible, and the situation is now irredeemable. Some of my favorite lines were her saying, "It is all about me and my family. Get that through your stupid head." As well as her saying, "If you don't want to be my doormat, don't let the door hit you on the way out." As well as letting me know what other people say about me behind my back, and that I was meant to be Haley's godmother, but apparently she couldn't bring herself to ask me because of what an absent friend I was. Well, now as a result, she's been blocked. I'm devastated and honestly relieved, even though I know I'm not totally blameless for remaining silent and letting resentment build up for so long. Wow, Stacy is a massive piece of garbage. Like the fact that she tried to bring her daughter into this and be like, "Wow, you're mistreating my daughter by not paying attention to her." And it's like, wait a second, your daughter has nothing to do with our fight. And the fact that she did that, in my opinion, shows that her old tactics are no longer working, so she had to come up with something new so that she could still try to like get one over on you. So seriously, I am really glad that you cut this lady off and you got her out of your life, because her behavior, in my opinion, is honestly unbelievably toxic. Am I the jerk for snapping at my significant other after she wakes me up at 3 in the morning claiming that somebody's in the attic? And despite the fact that I proved that no one else is in our house, she still went off on a tangent, forcing me to snap back on her in a way that she clearly didn't like. And now I feel like I'm in a lot of trouble and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I was woken up at 3 in the morning by a jumpy significant other telling me there is someone in the attic. So I get up rubbing my eyes and I check the hatch, which is closed. There's also no ladder present below the hatch, which means no one got in there from the hatch. I put my ladder there and I check the attic, but it's empty. I hear something running on the roof at this point, and it's probably just a cat. When I get down, my significant other is panicking, asking me what I saw, but I tell her nothing is in the attic. Something might might be on the roof, possibly. She then wants to call the police and is asking me 100 questions. I then ask her to wait while I check it out to try and settle her down. I then circle the house twice while shining a bright torch over the roof, and I still don't see anything there. I get inside the house and I explain I went around the house twice shining the torch on the roof, and there is nobody there. But it's then that I'm bombarded with so many questions. She was saying stuff like, who was it then? Who could it have been? What were they doing on the roof? How could they have even gotten up there? And despite the fact that I kept saying that no one was there, no one was up there, and that I don't even know if someone was there, she said to me, how do you not know? At least take a guess. I then said, I don't think anyone was there. It was probably just a cat running around. She then says that I need to go speak with the neighbors to see if they saw something while she calls the cops. But I responded back by saying I'm not going to wake the neighbors up at 3 in the morning and you are not calling the cops. Just go to bed. She then looked at me and said, no, you need to go speak with the neighbors because you don't know anything. You don't know who it was, what they were doing, or how they got up there. I then responded by saying, listen, I don't know who was there. I literally cannot know this. I don't know what they were doing there, and I cannot know that either. And I don't know how they could have gotten up there. If you want to ask hypothetically, then maybe they flew there. They parachuted off a plane and landed there. Or hey, maybe it was Spider-Man. I just don't know because I can't know. I've walked around the house and I found nothing. Do you really think me waking the neighbor up will somehow solve the mystery even though he knows less than us? Well, after I said that, she's now pissed off at me, saying that it was a stressful situation and that I should have been cooperative and understanding of her feelings. But instead, I was a real jerk. But no matter which way I look at it, I really can't think about where I went wrong because I'm not really in the best of moods at 3 o'clock in the morning. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, your girlfriend's either crazy or just completely out of her mind on some kind of substance. Because who would seriously wake up at 3 in the morning and be like, oh, someone's in the attic. We need to wake up the neighbors and solve this mystery. It's like, no, lady, we need to go back to bed. This is crazy. Because I really think the original poster's right. There is literally no evidence or any reason to drag your neighbors into this, especially at 3 in the morning. That is a stupid idea and it's only going to make things worse. So no, the original poster is definitely not at fault here. They literally checked everything that could possibly be making noise, and they know for a fact that whatever that noise was, it wasn't anything that's on their house. And honestly, the fact that his girlfriend's pissed off at him still is not only incredibly stupid, but also very petty. My lazy coworker has been putting me behind on my work for far too long, so I decided to set a trap, catching this guy in the act of not doing his job, eventually leading to him getting fired altogether. Here's what happened. Okay, a few years ago, I worked at a hospital in the environmental services where I gathered up the accumulated trash and medical waste to be disposed of. It wasn't a fun job and worked well for someone like me with ADHD, as this involved lots of walking. I could usually get lots of the hospital clear by my lunch break, as we worked in pairs to clear the building, but everything switched up once a new guy came in. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Ben. He seemed nice, but soon things began to go downhill. I showed up for work one day and the bins were overflowing, and then the next 2 days were the same situation. I would have so much garbage being accumulated that I wouldn't be halfway done with my section by lunch, and I would then have no time to get the medical waste taken out. I complained multiple times to management, who also, by the way, were getting heat for the piling up of waste. We all suspected Ben wasn't doing his job, but we couldn't find proof, and he honestly was a pretty good liar. So it was then that I decided to set a trap. One Friday, I saw that the bin in one area was overflowing, and that particular wing of the hospital would be closed on the weekends, so the trash wouldn't change. I then went ahead and took a photo of the bin, and I left it there unattended, knowing that Ben would be working the weekend. I then came in on Monday and I checked the same bin, and I saw it was exactly the same. I then took another photo and I showed my boss. Well, within minutes, she was calling Ben into the office and confronted him. He tried his usual lies, but when I showed the evidence, he just sat there stone-faced. It turns out that he spent most of his days hiding in the hospital and messing around on his phone. He was then fired and blackballed from all the departments of the hospital, and it honestly felt really good knowing that I'm the one that did him in. There's literally nothing worse in life than having to deal with someone else with your job, especially when that person is not doing their job. And Ben in this story is the classic case of a lazy coworker who is literally making your life a living nightmare. Like, you need him to do his share of the work, otherwise you're gonna be screwed. Like, because he's not doing what he needs to do, he is literally making your life a living nightmare. And that is so unfair for you. Like, seriously, that's not fair at all. So truly, good for you for getting this revenge on this guy, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law to get over herself and to stop trying to one-up us when it comes to our baby? Because right now, I fear that I've pissed everybody off, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my wife and her sister got pregnant at around the same time. The babies are the first of a new generation on their side of the family, so everyone was really excited. My sister-in-law was further along, but my wife ended up giving birth on week 32. On top of that, she had some complications that had her hospitalized. And then eventually, my nephew was born 2 weeks later at full term. Well, apparently, my sister-in-law was resenting having her thunder stolen and felt like she and her new baby weren't getting enough attention. She keeps making these comments like she's trying to one-up us. First, she was saying how sorry she was that my wife missed the golden hour, all because they had to take our son to the ICU. Now, this really upset my wife, since during her hospitalization, she was often too sick to visit the ICU, and she's already feeling crappy about missing that skin-to-skin contact with the baby on those first few weeks. After we started to bring our son to family gatherings, my sister-in-law started comparing the boys, saying how much bigger and more alert her son looks compared to ours, and how he hit more milestones. Well, fast forward to last weekend, and we had lunch at my in-laws' place. And my wife and I were excited to tell everyone that our son laughed for the first time earlier that day. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were having a good time watching the video when my sister-in-law made another comment about how her son did that a month ago. Now, I don't know why that was the last straw, but I just about had it. I told my sister-in-law that she's pathetic for trying to one-up a freaking baby, that her full-term son wasn't special for being more developed than mine, and that she needs to get over not giving birth to the first grandbaby. Well, needless to say, this ruined lunch, and my wife's family is very pissed off. And sure, I will admit I was harsh with my words and tone, and this was the first time I confronted her family like this. Up until now, we would each handle our own relatives, but these comments upset my wife and they really pissed me off. So seriously, am I the jerk for being so harsh and not staying in my own lane, especially after the comments my sister-in-law made? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't blame you for a second for stepping up and saying something. The original poster actually clarified and said that their wife was happy that they said something because this was completely out of line. And seriously, this honestly could not be more obvious that this was exactly what she was trying to do. She was trying to make her baby look better than yours, and it's like, seriously, give it a rest. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because this lady's comments were completely out of line. An entitled department head tries to get me fired after I follow his orders exactly as he described them, leaving him in a terrible state while he was trying to travel to and from work. Here's what happened. Back before cell phones and TSA checkpoints, I was working as an administrative assistant. Someone we will call Ray was my department head, and he had a great sense of humor. When I was hired on, Ray made sure I understood that I worked for him. Even though I would do some office-wide work, he was my boss. Now, someone we will call Clint was in charge of another department in our office. Flying from our office to a satellite office for a day or two was common for people in both departments, and I was in charge of making standard, pre-approved travel arrangements. If someone needed to change unexpectedly, they were supposed to handle those themselves. But Clint seemed unable to understand that. At some point, Clint decided that he wanted to cut travel cost. He wanted the lowest possible fare and lowest possible rate for his department. And for reference, the lowest possible fares were always at 5 o'clock in the morning outbound and 11 o'clock p.m. return flights. But even then, Clint simply didn't care. A couple of weeks into this policy, Clint is to be headed to the satellite office for some in-person meetings. And so I say to myself, okay, game on. Lowest possible fare and lowest possible rate. Well, Clint left at 5 o'clock in the morning for a flight. The lowest rate car rental company didn't keep their cars available at the airport. Clint had to take the shuttle to their off-site location to pick up his car. Sadly for Clint, the shuttle didn't start running until 8 o'clock, when his first meeting was scheduled to start. Now, the client refused to reschedule that day, but agreed to the next morning. And at some point, it dawned on Clint that he either had to fly home and back or get a room for the night. Well, he chose to get a room, and of course he called me. And so I followed the protocol. One lowest possible rate room coming right up. Unsurprisingly, that room didn't have security on site like he was used to, but it did have little multi-leg friends if his complaints were true. The next morning, Clint headed out, only to discover that his car had been broken into overnight. The police took their time arriving, and by the time they were done, Clint had missed his meeting again. Somehow, Clint got the client to reschedule again, and he decided to take the flight home and back the next day. Now, of course, I was kind enough to remember the lowest possible fare rule, so Clint was booked on the 11 o'clock p.m. flights home and 5 o'clock in the morning return, even though his meeting was midday. This time, the lowest rate car was at the airport, so Clint got to skip the shuttle this time. Now, at that point, Clint's policy of having the lowest possible fare had already cost the company at least double what a normal trip would have been, not to mention all the time I had spent calling hotels, motels, and car rental companies. The next day, he's on the 5 o'clock a.m. flight and makes it to his meeting, and I don't know when he realized that he didn't want the lowest possible fare at 11 o'clock p.m. I do know, though, that he decided to take the more expensive, earlier flight home both days, and somehow he discovered that he could change that himself. Well, the next time I saw Clint, he tried to fire me, but of course, too bad so sad, because I work for Ray, who knew about the entire thing and was laughing the entire time as well. Clint was furious, but there wasn't anything that he could do. The company would back up Ray, and Ray was backing up me. Clint then changed the room rate policy because of his experience, but refused to rescind the lowest fare and the lowest rental rate policy. Well, that was until accounting let slip that not only had Clint figured out how to take the higher price earlier flight, but he also figured out an upgrade seat as well. Clint then found himself with an entire department intentionally missing their 5 a.m. flights and rebooking for the more expensive 8 o'clock a.m., which somehow only had upgraded seats available every time. Rental car reservations were missed, and more expensive cars were rented. Meetings that were previously in the office were somehow only available after hours. So as a result, clients were taken to dinner. Dinner included alcohol, so rooms were booked at hotels closest to the restaurants and returning flights scheduled for the next day. Well, less than a month later, all lowest price policies were rescinded. I was allowed to book normally again, and the missed flights, upgraded seats, and fancy hotels disappeared. Dinner meetings remained but decreased dramatically, and when I left, Clint's reputation still had not recovered. Man, I can't stand people like Clint who make a policy change and then get pissed off when you follow through with it. Like seriously, this guy tried to get you fired for following his orders. So truly, I love the fact that you and the rest of your coworkers pretty much banded together and made this guy look like a complete fool, because managers like this, in my opinion, have no business being in a leadership position in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.